Hola, bienvenido de nuevo a otro episodio de Tack Bodybuilding. Antes de que empecemos, por favor suscríbete a mi canal y dale like al video. Gracias.
All right. So, first thing I want to ask you, I think I'm going to start asking everybody that I have on the podcast this because everybody genuinely agrees for the most part. But when I talk about this on social media, kids freak out and think I'm just saying this to be dramatic. Do you think if you've never thrown up during a leg workout that you don't know how to train legs hard?
Yes,
Yes. Why?
because you have to, when you throw up during a leg workout, it's pretty much from overstimulation, your nervous system just not being able to handle it, your nervous system purging everything in the stomach, because we have that fight or flight response, right? We have PNS and SNS, and they shift, rest and digest, fight or flight, and they go like this, they offset. So when your digestion is really good, your performance is going to be lower. When your performance is really good, digestion is going to be lower. And if you have food in your system, it's going to compromise your performance, you know? So when you're training as hard as humanly possible and putting your body through that type of stress, that purge response is just a sign from your body that, you did more than it can handle, and I feel like if you haven't pushed yourself to that point, then you don't know what intensity is, because a lot of people don't know what intensity is. I've said it a million times. I could do push-ups to failure. I can break a sweat and it's not going to give me a massive chest. So just because you go to failure doesn't mean anything. It's a level of neural activation. It's a level of intensity. It's what you do. Listen, I could make somebody throw up, 4 or 5 sets in if I wanted to. I mean, it would be detrimental. It wouldn't really be smart. I mean, listen, you make it clear, throwing up is not a smart thing to do. It's not a goal to aim for because it fucks up your GI tract, messes you with your esophagus. It's acid coming up. You don't really want to do that, disrupting everything. But I think that at some point you should be able to train to that point, just knowing that you're capable of that intensity. And this is why I tell people all the time. They say, well, how do I learn this? What do I do? Well, nobody really can articulate what intensity is. You got to be shown. So everybody watching this, everyone, you're never going to have the intensity you need until you grab somebody who really has true intensity and they take you through some workouts and you learn what it really means to be intense. So I got lucky. I learned this young. And when I was younger, intensity was pretty much common in the gym. There wasn't a lot of serious gym goers, but the people that are really gave it their all. People were serious. It was a lot harder to turn pro back then. So these people were battling, and there was a lot less pro cards. So these people were battling for like the 4 or 5 pro cards available per year. Imagine that. Imagine all you guys right now, pro, national competitors, all your friends that are pro. Imagine if there wasn't 100 pro cards given away a year. Imagine if it was only 5. You know, the
Yeah.
the national shows would be a lot harder and a lot deeper because less people would be turning pro. Everybody go look up Edgar Fletcher. Never turned pro. When you look this up, you're going to go, "Oh my God." He would have annihilated every national show for probably the past 10, 15 years, maybe 20. And he didn't even turn pro because there were so many good people in the ranks. So it was harder. So everybody had to take their stuff serious. So when I learned, everybody trained that way. So now, mind you, this is 20 years ago. So the old timers took me through it, kicked the living crap out of me. Even the gym owner got on the loudspeaker and let the whole gym know that I was throwing up out the back door. And then he finished with that. Now let's see if Phil's a man and grabs his balls and finishes the workout. And I was throwing up to the point where I was just dry heaving acid and water. Like I was screwed. But I learned. And you don't always want to train that way, but you've got to know you have that capability. Because fact of the matter is, the better you get, the bigger you get, the harder it is to put muscle on. And the more you've got to push and the more activation you've got to get, the more intensity you've got to put into the sets to make a little bit of gains. So if you don't have that, you're just going to hit a wall at some point. And a lot of people don't understand that because they get the beginner results. They put on 20 pounds in their first year. They do their first cycle. They put on another 20 pounds. So they think that what they're doing is right. And then they hit a wall and then nothing else budges because they've exhausted those beginner results. The body's resistant and they don't know how to go further. Now, don't confuse this with neural activation because that's a different topic. I tell people all the time. I remember one of my old apprentices, Kyle Wilkes, who's pretty much known as the influencer coach
Mhm.
throughout the world in the industry. He coaches the Trend Twins. He coaches Anthony, I forgot how to pronounce his name,
Mantello.
uh, Montello. He coaches a lot of, I think he coached Kevin English, turned him pro, right?
James English. Yeah.
So he's like the influencer coach now. He was one of my apprentices that I basically took and turned into a coach, before he was even big into competing, because I noticed he was just very, very smart and picked things up, you know.
Wait,
So, go ahead.
You and Kyle used to train legs like animals, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like you used
And
to
you know what? And you know what? Yeah. And Kyle, I respect the hell out of because he probably threw up. We trained legs twice a week because I put my M4 into the wall and I had no way to the gym. So he's just like, I'll pick you up every Monday and Friday and we'll go do legs. And he drove far to do it, like 45 minutes to me each way. And every Monday and Friday, he was either puked or passed out on the floor. And he would get up and he'd say to me, I'll get you next time. And he said it every time. And I respect that because most people didn't come back after the first time with me because everybody can get through the first exercises. We're just lifting heavy, long rest periods, trying to get some optimal performance out, the heaviest lifts we can possibly do. But then when you start picking up the pace and the reps come in and the shorter rest periods and the nausea and the fatigue kicks in, people can't do it.
Mhm.
So they would be like all excited after they made it through the first one. And then the second one get harder. And then the third one, they're like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. And people didn't usually come back and train legs with me. Very few people trained legs with me often because of the way I trained. Now, I'm not saying I'm some badass. I trained like that because I had to, because my leg genetics were terrible. If you saw what my legs looked like when I started, they were horrible. And they didn't grow fast. So that was the only way I could get my legs to grow is to out train everyone. But Kyle never quit. He never said when it was time for his set, he never said, hold on, wait, give me a minute. No matter what he felt like, he'd pull himself off the floor and do his set. And I respect the hell out of that because I couldn't break him. He
Mhm.
wouldn't quit. And he came back every damn time. And I guarantee, like, if I was still able to train like that at this age, and I said, hey, Kyle, let's go hit legs tomorrow, he'd be like, I'm in, let's go. Like, he has no fear. And that's something that's kind of lost today. But I remember Kyle asking me, how long before I can activate and fire my muscles off like you with practice? And I guess he was expecting me to say weeks, months. It's not that because your nervous system develops at a very, very slow rate and it regenerates at a really slow rate. I believe it's something like an eighth of an inch per month if you were to sever nerves or something like that. So nerves take a long time to grow and a long time to adapt. So the older you get, the better you're going to get at this. And it's going to take you years and it's going to take you a long time. Right now I could use half the weight that I used to use and I could beat myself up more with it because I can just fire off my muscles harder. It's a skill that my body has developed and acquired. But it's going to take time. But I think that's a separate topic. But everybody does need to work on that too. When I tell people that lifting is a skill, it really is. When you swing a baseball bat 1,000 times every day, you get better at it. You hit the ball further. Did you get bigger and stronger? No, you became more efficient.
Mhm.
And lifting is no different. People don't think of going to the gym as, practice, football practice, baseball practice, basketball practice. It's practice because you're continually trying to improve your skill at what it is you're doing. There's no like somebody who's just going to put you in position and tell you exactly how to do the movement and now you're perfect. No, it doesn't work that way. It's going to take time. But I'm rambling a little bit, but back to your question, yes, I think that everybody should throw up once in their life and really experience what that feels like so that they know what it's like to push their limits to the absolute brink of their limits. And what that's going to do is it's going to show them that there's new levels. It's going to show them that they're capable of more. And now the roof is raised. I've given this analogy 1,000 times on podcasts, but I'll do it again in the chance that there's new people watching this. But many years ago, there was nobody had broken 10 seconds in the 100 meters. Nobody. And then once one person did it, what happened? Now everybody fucking did it. Now it's the fucking norm to do it in a national level or Olympic level event. Everybody's breaking 10 seconds because now they know it's possible. So once you know something's possible, then it becomes more realistic to you and you chase it. So after somebody has taken you through that level of intensity and shown you that you can do so much more than what you thought you could do, it changes your perception. And now you can train much harder, unless you're soft, in which case, don't do this.
Yeah, I think people hear it and they automatically get offended because it's them hearing I don't train hard. And they also take it as why would I want to throw up when I train legs, as if we're saying to do it every time you train legs? And that's not the point. It's like you're saying it's a reference point. So once you go there, your perception of effort is only going to be based off of your experience. So if you've never gone to the absolute highest threshold and killed yourself, then you don't know where that line is. And your level,
That's a great point, because you know what? I didn't start that way. I was lucky that I've had previous life experiences from wrestling, but not only just from wrestling, but because I belonged to a wrestling program that would, like, in my town, it was prestigious. So there was no option to not be tough and not give it your all and, whatever. So I learned to push early, but I still didn't know how to push in the gym the way that I needed to. And lucky for me, I was in a good gym with bodybuilders and they showed me how to do it, but I did not know how to do it. And I've never seen somebody that knew how to do it without being shown. So just because I'm saying that people don't train hard, it's just like you said, it's just a matter of they've never been shown. They've never been taken through it. It's not their fault. They think that what they're doing is the best they can do. They really believe that. That's why I said a lot of people watching this are probably, oh, I train hard. I train my ass off. I'm sure they absolutely do believe that, so that's why I say grab somebody in the gym who actually does train their absolute ass off. And listen, more times than not, the person's going to be nice. They're not going to be your training partner, but they'll say, listen, I'll take you through a few workouts with me. Now that doesn't mean personal training. You want to train with them. You don't want them training you, so you could basically watch what they're doing and try to keep up with it. As an example, anybody can kill somebody by putting them through a workout. It's a different story killing them with your workout while you're doing it. So grabbing somebody in the gym that trains their absolute ass off and going through it with them is really going to be helpful. It really, really is. So I think that everybody watching this at some point, if you're serious about this and you want to get results, you find that person in the gym that trains their ass off and you do it, you know, and that's all there is to it. And this goes for both men and women. One of the craziest sets that I've ever seen was a woman, Michaela. We had a competition and geared up. How many times could you squat? What is it? I think it was 225. And then for women, I think it was 135. And I forget what the men did, but she doubled the reps with hers. Now, mind you, she was probably less than 135.
Yeah.
And she squatted it for, I think, 118 reps or something. It took her over 10 minutes. It was one of the most crazy sets that I've ever seen. Because yes, she might have paused between some reps and this and that, but everybody does. But you don't understand what's going on in the body during that set until you put that weight down. You're still holding it on your shoulders. You're still oxygen depleted. You're going dizzy. You're getting blurry. The pain is so intense that you're trying to talk yourself out of every rep. And it's insane that somebody could do 100 reps the way that she did it. Now, mind you, women have a slightly higher genetic pain tolerance because of childbirth. Doesn't mean they feel less pain than you. It means they tolerate it better than you. So if you have a female bodybuilder in the gym that trains hard and you're a guy, you might not want to do that to your ego because she'll probably bury you because women can handle more. They really can if they want to.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but grab somebody you respect, ask them to take you through a workout. They'll probably going to level you, and then you're going to understand.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's how I learned. You always learn by somebody else showing you. And everybody's so caught up in the science, right? They don't want to produce too much fatigue, all the information thrown at them, and they look at it so one-dimensional. And the matter of the fact is that there's just a level of intensity that you haven't experienced. And once you experience it, you're going to go into every gym session, you're going to do a set, and you're going to have that in the back of your mind of, wow, I probably could have gotten more out of this, or how close was I to that threshold? And this is also given the context that you are fully digested, not going to the gym right after eating and throwing up. That's a different thing. It's just pushing yourself so fucking hard to a place you've never gone and using it basically almost like as a learning experience. It's just part of the journey to understand how to become a better athlete, bodybuilder.
You should never go into the gym still digesting food.
No.
This doesn't mean train fasted. It means give the meal that you ate time to eat, time to digest. You and I covered this when you were in my program shortly. But a lot of people will complain that they don't like intras. Intras don't work. Well, that's probably because your pre-workout meal is not digested. And intras purpose is to transit through your system at a fast rate. And if you have food still digesting, well, it's like a traffic jam. It's congested. It's not getting through. So you've got blood in your stomach. So if you have blood in your stomach and you're still digesting, what did I just say? It's going to impair your performance. And if you try to push your performance, What's the opposite thing that happens? Like I said, when you throw up, your body's like, fuck this, I want to get rid of this. And you start to get nauseous, feel bloated, and feel like shit too. So if it's a chicken and rice meal, give it an hour and a half, 2 hours. I do the lightest thing possible with my clients. I do Greek yogurt and cream of rice, and I still make them wait an hour and a half. Because if you're not mostly digested by the time you get into the gym, that intra workout is not going to do anything. If you're still digesting food, it's going to make the situation worse. People screw this up all the time. They even go like an hour, right? Chicken and rice.
Yeah,
But what
no.
happens at 30 minutes of pre-workout, you're drinking a pre-workout shake with about 20 ounces of water, which is going to dilute your stomach acid and slow down your digestion. So that food is never going to make it digested by the time that workout starts. So you
Well,
want to give it at least a full hour before you start, putting all that fluid in. And again, the best, approach for that is just drink minimal with the meal. Drink less with the meal. You'll dilute your stomach acid less, and then you will be able to digest it and get into the workout. It's actually funny that Nasser El Somebody did a battle for the Olympia. I think it was like 97 or something like that. He actually talked about this in his video, and I don't think he knew the science of it, but I think he kind of realized, maybe he did. He said when he's in prep, he actually drinks more water with his meals because he's always starving and it makes the food digest slower. So, yeah, not a bad idea. But we want to make sure that we optimize everything for the workouts. So like you said, you don't want to be throwing up because there's food in your stomach. If that happens, you want it to be because of your intensity.
yeah, definitely. You said, because you said people are drinking pre-workout with 20 ounces of water. That just reminded me, because I was going to say that most people aren't drinking the pre-workout with any water. I know we've gone over this. Everybody's 2 ounces of water, dry scoop, a little swig, and we know why that's not efficient. But I don't know if you want to touch on that here. What's the problem with that?
If you don't want to listen to me, 2 days ago, Nick Walker made the same fucking video. Sorry for all
Yeah,
the
he
cursing.
did. He did make a video.
He made the same video. He just said, like, I don't understand you guys, because most of the ingredients need water to work. I think dry
Mm-hmm.
scooping was just like a popular thing to do, or it was just cool, or I don't know why. I don't know. I don't even understand it. But yeah, most of those ingredients are not going to work. But guess what? They're also not going to transit without water to transit them. So it's not even getting into your system. Now, don't get me started with the people that drink their pre-workout as they're walking into the gym. That's not
Mm-hmm.
hitting you until like 45 minutes into your workout at that point.
Yeah.
So pre-workout needs 30 minutes to work. You need to do it a full 30 minutes pre-workout, and you need adequate water to make those things work.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to pull up this video here. I want to talk about this with you. Actually, hold on. This just reminded me too. You know this guy?
Rusty Jeffers,
I forgot. I looked this up like 10 minutes ago when you were talking about that,
very
because you
good
said,
poser. He
yeah,
was one of the first really good posers.
I used to work with him for posing coaching when I lived in Arizona all the time.
That explains why you have decent posing.
Yeah, he's great. But I looked this up as you were talking, because you said it was so much harder to go pro, and this guy looked like this. Never went pro. He didn't go pro until he was like in masters in the late 2000s.
There's people back then that looked even better than this that never turned pro. You got to understand back then how hard it was to turn pro. One year nationals, the top five was Paul DeMeo, Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, Ronnie Coleman, same weight class.
Yeah,
That's
bro,
a
look at
national
that.
top five.
That's fucking
Yeah.
crazy. Not pro. No pro card for that.
I honestly, when I started bodybuilding, I didn't have aspirations of turning pro or competing at a high level, because I didn't think it was possible, because I knew what was currently out there. And then I started trying a little harder once I saw that it was not as deep anymore. It wasn't the same way it was. So what happened was the judging started shifting towards conditioning and started shifting towards mass. And I actually call that period, I got very unlucky because I'm a shape guy. And the prime of my career landed smack dab in the middle of what I call the dark ages, which is where people with just shredded glutes and tons of muscle were winning all the shows. It didn't matter if they had shape. And you can only imagine Joe Weider rolling over in his grave because he wanted this to be art. He wanted this to be beautiful, symmetrical, balanced. And none of these guys were. And there's a lot of guys that are pro today that turned pro in that period that before 10 years prior or 10 years after, they'd have had no shot. No shot. And I actually talked to one of the top judges making a joke about somebody who was pretty popular, turned pro in that period. And I said, like, we imagine having these, like, that guy would have never turned pro on my watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, horrible shape, but very, very big and conditioned, you know? So, that period kind of sucked, but that's when the the shape started coming down, the conditions started counting more, but the shape was still there. So that's when I started really thinking that I could do something. When I took third at my first USA in 2014, I didn't have glutes in. The entire 15 had glutes in. I didn't have glutes in, but I had everything else. So I did well. But then as the years progressed, now I needed to have glutes and I started getting pushed out. And then I started really destroying my physique because I don't have a good balance of body fat. John Meadows actually said that's one of the biggest gifts you could possibly have in competition is even distribution of body fat. Because my front would be ready in 6 weeks of dieting. And then a lot of my mass would fall apart just tracing glutes. Because if I didn't show up with glutes, nothing else mattered. My hams would be peeled, my quads would be strided, lower back be strided, everything would be hard as nails, but my glutes weren't in. And then I would chase glutes and I would literally lose another 10, 15 pounds just trying to get the glutes in because they wouldn't even look at me if my glutes weren't in. So, now thankfully, Tyler Mannion really is fixing that and is making a big difference. We've seen how many people now win shows without glutes, but everything else was awesome. So it's not just a glutes only show, but for a long time, I would say maybe 2000, I'd say I started around 2010 until about 2017, 18. It was just a glute show. And, when Tyler really started taking over, one of the first things he did is he made it very, very clear that glutes are not winning shows if everything else is not there. And he really enforced it. And now look at what we see. Look at our top guys again. Shape is coming back. Look at Hadi. Look at Sanson. Those are shape guys. Hadi's waist is tiny. Derek Lunsford, shape guy. There's a lot of shape guys coming in now because they shifted the criteria. But it was going in a very bad direction for a long time, and I think it was hurting the fan base.
Okay, so two questions there. If you, looking back, you said your glutes, never came in because of your body fat distribution. Do you think if you would have hammered glutes and got your glutes much bigger, do you think that would have helped?
Genetic. So I actually went to the point where I was considering liposuction.
Wow. Did you train glutes directly a lot?
Yeah, dude, I had a huge ass, so I couldn't train them more.
Yeah.
My early years in bodybuilding, I was squatting wrong. So I ended up with very big adductors and very big ass because I was doing half of a good morning. And, I was moving a ton of weight. I was happy with it. We didn't have video cameras and camera phones and any of that. So I couldn't film myself and review my form like everybody can today. If I didn't have somebody there that knew what they were doing to look, which I never did, how was I to even know, unless somebody really showed me? Again, there wasn't a lot of resources. We weren't connected through the internet. Now I could find somebody in North Jersey, find somebody in South Jersey that can help me. You couldn't do that when I was coming up. You couldn't find anybody. There was no way unless it was word of mouth or you hit the yellow pages. People probably don't even know what that is watching this. So it was very hard to find people that could really help you do these things right and really learn how to lift correctly. So it was hard, and I couldn't review it because you literally had to go in there with a giant camera that was like this big that you would like hold on your shoulder to try to, yeah. And it wasn't digital. There was literally a VHS in it where you were recording with, and if you didn't have one of those, you couldn't record your sets. You couldn't record your form. I wish we did. When I was 24, you can still see on YouTube. I have videos of me when I was 24 years old doing the 160s on incline, but it looks like the video has 3 pixels.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the videos could only be 15 seconds. That was the limit.
For what? What the fuck were you using? You didn't have like a handy cam, like the old.
They didn't have those.
How long ago were we talking about, bro? They had those in the 90s. The fucking.
They didn't have handy
cams
until like the early 2000s.
Yeah, so you're talking about before that.
I started lifting in 99.
Yeah. Okay. So the other question I was going to ask was, because I know people ask this a lot when I put up the thing with what we're talking about, is where do you think bodybuilding is heading? In what direction? Do you think they're going to think a lot of things are going to be changing? How do you feel about Wesley winning all this stuff? Like,
I talked to a lot of the judges. I know a lot of them for a long time. I competed with some of them. So, we've had these conversations. A lot of people believe that Classic is going to overtake open bodybuilding eventually. And Chris Bumstead played a big part in that. And one of the reasons is because it's attainable. It's more attainable than being an open bodybuilder. And most people can get to classic size genetically. Very rarely you're not going to be able to get to classic size, but 90% of those guys will never be able to get to open size. I struggle a lot. I couldn't get to open size without destroying my lines. So, most people can't get that big. And People want what's attainable. They want to, dream and think that they can do it, even if they can't. And, if something's too far out of reach, how many people right now are growing up saying, I'm going to be a billionaire one day? Because it seems so fucking like unrealistic and out there. You're just like, okay, I'm going to be a millionaire. I want to have 10 million, 20 million, but nobody grows up going, I'm going to be a billionaire, because it seems really unrealistic. Eventually you get to that, but you don't start thinking that. So I think that open bodybuilding is doing better now because Tyler is enforcing aesthetics and making sure that people have flat stomachs, tiny waists, have their lines, they don't have bloated muscles, they don't have blurred definition. And he is taking that into consideration. He even is explaining that now in the videos that he's been doing, which are amazing. We didn't have that either. So that's something that anybody who cares about bodybuilding, they need to be following the show recaps that Tyler does. He doesn't have to do that. And nobody has ever done that before. He's doing that for us. It doesn't make him any money. It doesn't get him anything extra. He's doing it out of the kindness of his heart because he loves the organization. And he's really helping people understand things. And some of the things he made clear is detail. Detail matters. A detailed guy can beat a shape guy if it's that drastic. So, he's brought back a lot of things like aesthetics and details and sharp lines and getting rid of the bloated bellies and the synthol and all the other stuff. Now, granted, I was told that synthol is not, if they knew you were doing it, but they can't see it, they're not going to mark you down. They're only going to mark you down as if it's obvious and it looks unnatural. So that's pretty much what it is now, because almost everybody's doing it. A lot of people are doing, not in classic, but in open for sure. I'd say at least half the Olympia line, probably more, is using it in some way, shape, or form. But if it looks natural, then you can't be marked down for it. We saw Hottie's delts, obviously, that they were shot up back in the past, and now they're not, because they're nowhere near what they were a couple of years ago when he was told to stop doing it. But
Okay, well,
listen, what was that?
I was gonna say, explain exactly what synthol is real quick, because I think a lot of people don't even understand what synthol is and think it's just oil being injected into a muscle.
Synthol is just a site enhancement oil that people inject into the muscles that inflates the muscles and makes them look a certain way, or makes them bigger than they actually are without actually growing muscle. Now, I don't believe in abuse of that. I believe in use of that. So, for example, if a girl was born flat chested, she wants implants. Nobody cares about that. Nobody criticizes that. That's fine. But what if a guy is born with no bicep peaks? What are your options? Never bodybuild or give yourself some bicep peaks, But I don't agree with putting 3 inches on your arms because you're too lazy to train and grow your arms. So I tell my people and I tell my friends, like, I'll help you shape a muscle if you don't have shape to it, but I'm not going to inflate it because you're too lazy or you can't grow it.
No, but
So that's my belief on it.
People think of synthol and they immediately think of those like pictures of the guys in like Brazil with like inflated arms. And isn't that just oil? That's just straight oil. Doesn't synthol like have? I've never seen synthol, but
well, in Brazil it's PMAA because it sits longer, it stays longer. It's very, very unhealthy.
Like the crazy pictures with the fucking
yeah, but that's just people abusing it. There's people that compete. Every single one of you watching this, if you know a decent amount of competitors, I promise you know a few people that use it and you don't know it because they do such a good job with it. They're surgical with it. There's a very well-known trainer, I'm not going to mention a name, out of Venice, and everybody thinks that person's such a phenomenal trainer. And he's really, I know you know who it is, don't say.
Yeah.
He's a site injection expert. He knows how to do it, and that's why you see his people are never lifting heavy, because he'll inject you in the back room and then go train the muscle and really disperse the oil out, and it looks perfect. And he's really, really good with it. And he's been doing it for decades. So if you see him at a show, that's why he's at a show. He's not coaching and peaking anybody. He's there for that. And, there's people that are just so surgical with it, you would never know it. You would never figure it out. So, as long as you're doing it and it looks natural, then they don't really frown upon it. When it starts to look stupid and abnormal and you're inflating body parts, like if you have, like, if every part of your body is like rock hard, but your biceps look puffy and soft, obviously it's full of oil because oil doesn't flex. Yeah. So if you start doing things like that, like if you see somebody whose entire body is conditioned, but a part like, their lats or their biceps, triceps, shoulders have a lot less condition than the rest of the package, clear sign they've used synthol. And there's actually a recent, I'm not going to say because I don't want to, again, badmouth anyone, and I don't want to like have anybody targeting anyone, but there's in the last, I'll say within the last 20 years, there's a Mr. Olympia in one of the divisions that really, really built their physique on it. And The experienced and knowledgeable people know exactly what I'm talking about right now, but most of you won't, and you won't figure it out. And just did a phenomenal job at reshaping everything with it. And it looked insanely good. Can't mark him down. So I even remember after he got off stage one year, I was talking with one of the judges, and I'm like, "Did you see it?" He's like, "Yeah, but that looked awesome." That was his answer,
Mm-hmm.
because he did it good. Like they all knew it, but it looked phenomenal. So,
Yeah.
I don't think that it's something to be frowned upon if you can do it right. But if you can't do it right, then it looks like trash and it's going to hurt you, and it's also very, very not good for your kidneys.
But now
So I don't really advise lots of use of it.
this is what I'm saying though, because you're saying people build their physiques off of it. I've never seen it in person. I forget what the one's
Not a
called.
lot of people build their physiques, but I say built their physiques off of it. I mean like 3, 4, 5 body parts.
No, but
You know,
it's called SEO, a site enhancement oil. Are there not properties? It's not straight oil. Aren't there properties in some of them that aid in growth as well? Like there's a purpose of putting it there to help
that they say
the
that it's
fascia or whatever. I don't fucking know.
We currently don't have any technology, scientific technology that's going to site enhance grow anything. It's complete horseshit. So anybody tells you that, they're lying. I'm sure there's people that are going to argue with me because they still think that IGF site grows things. It does not. We still cannot reproduce localized growth factors. We inject into an area, is absorbed, it goes systemic, and then it has an effect, which means it affects everything. People will swear like their arms got bigger. Yeah, you inject the hell out of your arms and they're swollen and there's a lot of scar tissue. It's going to look bigger, you know?
Yeah.
So like I have scar tissue in my arms from doing it. Like if you look at this arm right here, there's a little, I don't know if you can see it on here. There's a little lump right here. That's scar tissue and it's never going to go away. See it?
Barely. No.
So
But
when you start to get scar tissue from buildup and then you have inflammation and swelling, yeah, you're going to think that that's all muscle growth. And it doesn't work. Muscle will regrow in the area because you've expanded the fascia tissue and increased the area and volumize the muscle, which will increase the leverage, allow you to lift a little bit heavier, but you got to be careful because of the connective tissue. You really need to be guided through this. Nobody should be doing this without expert guidance. Nobody.
no. But what I'm
There's a
saying
lot
is
of nuances to it that you'll screw up.
it's not just oil. There's other shit in it, right? Because then
There's a lot of stuff in it that makes it hold longer.
Yeah, because the other thing would be then I could just pin test into my bicep and it would do the same thing, but it's not. There's more.
It's going to absorb faster, and test is also going to be inflammatory, and then you have the solvents in it and everything else that is going to burn up the muscle. It's going to cause scar tissue. You don't want to be injecting solvents into your muscle and things like that.
Mhm.
So you want to be very, very careful with the levels of it that you could put into your muscles. Because again, I made that mistake too. I tried Prope and it's a really stupid thing to do. So don't inject gear in your muscles if you're trying to enhance them. Use the SEO, but you really need some guidance with that. SEO requires more guidance than PEDs do, I think, because it's a complex process that can be messed up in 1,000 ways.
Yeah, like I said, I've never even seen it, and I've been doing this for over a decade. So I feel like unless you're a pro, you're probably not even going to be exposed to that.
And on a lot of people, I promise you, you just didn't know it.
Yeah, but how do you feel about Wesley coming? Everybody's hyping Wesley's name up, right? Now that he's fucking won both the Arnolds, right? He won the US and whatever one just happened.
The improvements that he made. Look at how he looked,
Yeah.
He caught Ramon slipping a little bit, and Ramon's condition wasn't what it traditionally was, and he's not a very good poser at all. He really hurts himself with his posing. He's probably one of the worst posers in Classic.
Mm-hmm.
And he just basically relies on his amazing structure, his amazing hardness and condition and shape and balance, so he relies on that. But I think he would have had a shot at knocking Chris off if he was a much better poser. People don't realize Chris is probably the best poser in Classic, not performance wise, but knowing how to present his physique in the best way possible. From working with me and from our discussions that I'm very, very big on, geometry, symmetry, all of those lessons, all of those things, identifying posing and really being perfect with your posing, correcting your flow with like tiny little tweaks and things like that. There is nothing that I can improve on Chris's posing. No, I can't improve a single thing on his posing. It's as perfect as it's going to be. And he's figured that out for his body. And I feel like not enough people do that. And if Ramon were to do that, he might have had a shot at beating Chris, but people have tried to help him. He's posed with people out of Dragon's Lair. He's posed with a number of people, but nobody's ever been able to really fix his posing to where it needs to be. And if they did, he'd be better. But as far as Wesley, Wesley really made some improvements. I actually said years ago that I didn't think he had classic shape. I thought he had awesome muscle bellies, but he didn't have classic shape. And I thought he would be a better open bodybuilder. But listen, he just proved me wrong because his shape got better and better and better by improving certain body parts. And again, Tyler said this on his review of the show. He said he needed to make certain improvements to, because he said he had a little bit wider waist, which I agree, but he made his lats so wide and his shoulders so big that he created the illusion of having a really good taper. So he fixed that. He's never going to be the guy that flows perfectly, but he is a condition and detail guy. And one of the most awesome things that I noticed about him recently is his delts. His delts have never been injected because what happens is people don't realize there's more than 3 heads to your shoulders. So when you look at Wesley's back double bicep, you can see them all. Yeah, I think there's about 7 or 9 of them. I forget the exact number. I think it's about 1, 2, 3,
7
4,
divisions.
5, 6, 7 divisions. So you only see that on natural bodybuilders, and that's a giveaway for people that claim natural that aren't natural. You can see that in their delts, in their back double bicep. But he has all the lines, and it adds detail and crispness, and it looks really, really cool. It catches your attention. The more detail you have, the more conditioned you're going to look. And he really out-conditioned everybody. He optimized everything about his physique. He nailed his peak perfectly. I don't know who his coach is. I wish I did. Give him credit. But he was as good as he optimized his physique as good as it possibly could have been. He'll never look back and say, I could have done this better.
Yeah. Yeah. You think he's going to be the top contender for Chris?
Again, it depends if somebody helps Ramon fix his posing,
Yeah. It's really holding
I
him back.
offered one. Listen, I offered once, I offered again. I heard nothing. So now my offer is off the table. So I'm not helping anymore. And that's the way it is. I don't, first of all, I told him, I said, I don't need credit. Nobody needs to know about this. I just want to see the best guys win.
Yeah.
I said, this is going to be our secret. I won't tell anyone. And listen, nobody took me up on it. So that my offer is off the table now. So
it's crazy.
Hopefully somebody can help him improve his posing and really put him in, really help him. He's got such a nice physique. He's got such a beautiful, I think he has a more beautiful physique than Chris does. He's much more aesthetic. So Chris has that like wow factor, and Chris is just as perfect a bodybuilder as he could have been. He's another one that'll look back and never be able to say, I could have done something better. Nothing he could have done better than what he's done.
Yeah.
He's just phenomenal. He's probably one of, if not the best overall competitor we've ever seen, ever.
Yeah.
Ronnie's obviously the best bodybuilder we've ever seen, but there's things Ronnie could have done better. He could have controlled his waistline better. He could have kept it smaller. He could have not had that crazy diastasis recti. He used to have a very small waist. So imagine what he had to do to have to ruin that waistline.
You think Ronnie's a better bodybuilder than Phil?
No. Well, Ronnie would beat Phil.
Yeah.
Just because of structure, overall size, and just the way. Because if you put Ronnie next to Phil will look like a child next to him. People don't realize that. They scale these things. They put these comparisons online. It would not be a comparison with 5'9".
Jay beat Ronnie, and Phil beat Jay.
But Jay admitted, and you can find a million videos of Jay saying this, he beat a declining Ronnie. He said, I never beat Ronnie at my best. And even in his recent speech, he said Ronnie Coleman is by far and away the best bodybuilder who's ever lived. Jay admitted that he had no shot at beating Ronnie at his best. Nobody would. But that doesn't mean that he did everything he could have with his physique the best way he could have.
Yeah.
He could have hit his side chest better. He could have hit some different poses a little better, but still he was Ronnie Coleman. Chris has optimized everything that he possibly could do with that physique as perfectly as is possible. So I think that he is probably the, skill wise, and as far as maximizing your physique and then winning, Chris is probably the best competitor we've seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you also, before you say anything, I'm going to pull up this clip, and then I'm going to say something, and then you could go on your rant here. I'm going to play this. I said it to you last night, but I saw this on TikTok, so it just is relevant to this right now.
But like other issues or like things that like make me like disresonate with like competitive bodybuilding would be like this sheer like subjective factor. you know, obviously it's judges' opinions. I still don't even know like what's the like objective like criteria with how they evaluate bodybuilders. To me, I thought not so long, I was like, if I had to make the sport as objective as possible, how would I do it? And I think I came up with something along the lines of taking everyone's physiques the day of the show and having them be measured in some like device that precisely three-dimensionally scans their entire body and runs mathematical algorithms based on sacred geometry and like Fibonacci sequences and all these like fucking golden ratio type numbers to just objectively evaluate, all things considered, size, proportions, everything, who has mathematically the best physique, and then just literally have a computer equal that. And then you take each bodybuilder and you put them on stage and you have them do a dance, a routine, like something with music to add a humane artistic component to the brood logical calculation, and then combine those two variables and equals like the winner, right? But like,
Okay, so I know that you are very big on geometry, all that stuff. And what I'm going to say here is that not what Dave is saying here? Basically, how it already works to an extent, because people say bodybuilding is subjective, but there is this objective subconscious factor to it where you're looking at somebody and there's not actual equations being done. We don't have actual numbers, but like subconsciously, there is symmetry, there's whatever the golden ratios that you're looking at. And that ultimately is kind of how it's judged, right? Like you look at Chris is perfect posing. He has perfect ratios. Is that not kind of what it is? Just we don't have the actual numbers.
Yeah, well, actually, the funny thing is, everybody watching is probably get a kick out of this. Is when you sent me that, it's funny. I had no idea who that was. I'd never heard of that kid in my entire life. I guess he's got like millions of followers. He's a big deal. Apparently, from what you tell me, he's responsible for a lot of the other young influencers gaining attention and building their following. So I had no idea he even had that type of impact. I had no idea who that was, but he's very correct. I've honestly never heard anybody say anything like that besides myself, because I understood that. Now I'm sure other people have understood that or said it. I've never heard
now say
podcast or anything. But
if what he presented, if there was an actual mathematical equation done to do that,
it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work. But say there was just hypothetically, I feel like the placings would still be pretty similar with how we evaluate physiques, right?
Because you wouldn't be able to evaluate things like, full biceps, bicep peaks, striated quads, detail, Christmas tree. You wouldn't be able to look at all the things in the middle and all the detail, the condition and things like that, and say like, okay, well, what they do is they judge people based on a number of criteria, and whoever has the most of certain criteria is who's going to win. Listen, you could have a guy with an amazing silhouette, perfect, which is what he's describing with the golden ratio and everything like that. But he could have no detail whatsoever. And he could be pretty good condition. You could stick him next to somebody who's got comparable muscle mass, insane condition, amazing detail, and the amount of detail he has is better than the amount of shape the other guy has. So he would clearly win. But if we did it his way based on a computerized mathematical sequence, that wouldn't happen. So you can't take all those other things into consideration. So you're always going to need a person that's going to be able to make these decisions to decide how much of what criteria to weigh is going to make the difference. So,
yeah,
there's no way that they can actually do that, but that is right to an extent. We've talked about this a million times. It's just redundant at this point about the golden ratio and how as a human being, we are naturally inclined to appreciate symmetry. The most beautiful people in the world, the most attractive people in the world are the ones who have the most symmetrical faces. And you can look that up. You can challenge me on it. It's called the golden ratio. You can find the formula online. You can do the math, and you're always going to find that the most attractive people have the most symmetrical faces, always. And the body is the same way. I remember when I was young, I used to look at physiques and I'd say, well, I love the way that looks, but why do I like this guy's abs and chest better than this guy's abs and chest? Because they look like they're the same size. And I worked to understand it. So eventually I understood it pretty well. But yes, things like balance and symmetry and things like that, they really make a difference. We see competitors that are, we actually talked to one of my pros today about this. People overlook skeletal structure when it comes to competing. Now, if you've got an amazing shape everywhere, but you've got a short torso, long legs, you're in trouble. You're never going to be as good as somebody who's got proportional limbs and torso. So, wide shoulders, that's bones. Narrow hips, that's bones. Limb length, that's bones. Torso length, that's bones. What your rib cage looks like, that's bones. So bone structure plays a major, major part in the way things look. Now, I was not a shape guy because of my muscle bellies, because I really didn't have shape anywhere. My bone structure did it because I have small hips. I have extremely wide shoulders. If anybody wants a tape measure, measure 22 inches from your, that's how my collarbone is. Collarbone to collarbone is 22 inches. And people don't realize how wide that is until they go measure. And people are going to be at home measuring like 17, 18. They're going to go, what the hell? But yeah, like that's the only thing I really got was like really good skeletal structure, except for my knee joint, which is huge. That hurt me, you know? Like I showed you guys the difference on my Instagram of me and Luke Carroll when my legs were 3 to 4 inches bigger. They look exactly the same size because his knee joint was 14 and mine was 17 and a half.
Yeah, it's just all proportions.
So imagine if he had legs the same size as mine, they'd look ridiculous.
So
what he's like, bone structure plays a big difference, and people don't ever take that into account.
What he's saying there in the video, the gold ratio thing. So would you say that's basically there is an objective factor to bodybuilding? That's like the base layer, right? Like there's like the ratios, and then there's more.
People don't realize that they're being affected by it. Most people don't realize they're being affected by it. We're naturally inclined to. How many people really knew that symmetrical faces are the ones that are the most attractive? Probably nobody watching this right now, unless they've heard me say it before. So the same thing, when you're judging people and looking at people on stage, that's affecting you. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
You know, your look symmetry is what you, if somebody had two different looking pecs, that wouldn't be an attractive physique to you. You know, it's just about balance and symmetry and shape, not just development. And it will affect you. So if people were more cognitively aware of it, then they could manipulate things to make that more prevalent, but they don't. It's not popular now. I think it will be one day. As the more we talk about it, the more people hear it, because he's the first person other than myself that I've heard say it. I'm sure other people have, but I'm sure more people in the future will talk about it on podcasts like this, and then it'll become more known, and then you're going to see the entire community improve. Classic predominantly, but you'll see the entire community improve once they start realizing these things.
Well, it's just, about bodybuilding being an art, being the artist. I think a lot of people don't really still see it that way. But would you say that bodybuilding at the end of the day, is it more subjective or more objective? Which way would you lean more towards?
It's both, because sometimes the judges are affected based on what's on stage. If you, like I've gotten hurt with this before. I've competed in the supers. And, I looked decent, but everybody in the lineup was 5'11", 6 foot, and I was the short man. So I looked way too damn short. I was the odd man out, and I just had no chance to look as big as everyone else. So it hurts, and that hurts a lot of people. So it depends on what you're standing next to on stage. If there's one guy that's really peeled, the rest of the lineup's not going to be judged on that. If there's 3 guys that are really peeled, then that judging is going to go towards conditioning. And if you're not one of those guys, you'll be pushed out. If it's a entire class with great shape, if there's 3 guys with great shape, and they're going to judge that class off of shape. It all depends on what's in front of the judges. They're human beings. They're going to be affected. So while you want to be the best version of what you are, still going to come down to sometimes what you're standing next to. For example, if you have a bunch of guys on stage competing, and they all have 32, which is a small waist, 32 to 34, 36-inch waists. And then one guy jumps on stage with a 29, 30. Now everybody else's waist looks wide. By comparison, this is another way that I used to do well, because I didn't have any phenomenal body parts. I was not a great bodybuilder, but I was very, very balanced and symmetrical. So whenever I stood next to somebody who wasn't, it exposed their holes. So I didn't win. I didn't do well because I was so good. I did well because I made other people's weaknesses stand out.
Exactly. But that's almost like the objective factor to it, because if there's guys with 34, 36-inch waists on stage, but they all are proportionally well built, they have width, but then the guy with the small waist comes in, he's not as developed, he's still gonna look off.
You'll still notice the waistline.
You will, but I don't think, would it still hurt those guys if they still have better proportions compared to the guy that's just narrow and has a small waist?
There's only one guy with a really tiny waist. Again, like I said, maybe not. If there's 3 guys with really tiny waists, it's going to hurt them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well. Okay.
So yeah, there's always going to be a level of personal opinion in there. Like, for example, if we're talking, I teach this in my courses. If we're looking at certain divisions like wellness, bikini, men's physique, you got to be crazy to think the judges aren't judging their faces too.
Oh yeah.
100% are. So, and that's not part of the physique, but it's part of the presentation. It's part of the package. I've seen people have their hairstyle criticized. One of my buddies, his fiance at the time was one of the favorites and lost because they didn't like her curly hair. And I'm like, what the, are you kidding? You know, and she just refused to not go on stage with curly hair because she liked her curly hair.
Yeah.
But that was what the judges said. Everybody else, they didn't like at the time, curly hairs when the divisions were younger, but didn't like curly hair. So depending on which judge you're getting, you're going to get different criteria. If
Yeah.
Steve is the head judge, he's going for condition. And he likes, and if he sees your stomach come out at all, you have no chance. Tyler, he's going to go for shape and overall. Sandy loves aesthetics. So Sandy's going to be looking for aesthetics. So depending on who your head judge is, they're who does the call outs, and then everybody else can make, you know, suggestions. I want to see this person next to that person, but the head judge makes the call outs. They get suggestions from the table, but the head judge is making the call outs. So if Sandy's there, you better look pretty. You know, if Tyler's there, you better be very, very complete, symmetrical, and balanced. If Steve is there, if you have a skin fold, you're gone. You know, so like it's going to be different based on who's judging. You know, they judge a little differently.
Why don't you get into judging?
Because I don't think that I have the ability to make those calls, and I don't want to make those calls, and I don't want to be the person that makes certain calls, because people are always going to be upset. People, and I don't like upsetting people. I don't like hurting people, even if I'm right. I don't like to make people feel bad, because listen, most of the people have gotten into this industry because we're insecure or something was wrong. I got into this because I got dumped and I was upset, and that's where I put all my stress, you know? So a lot of it, most of us are in this because we're insecure. This is our armor. This is what protects us, makes us feel good, but they're still very insecure and vulnerable. And I don't ever want to tell somebody, oh, you aren't good enough. You know, like you just weren't good enough. You know, like imagine people are at their best and you just got to tell them, you were great. The other guy's just better than you. You did everything perfect, but you just weren't as good as the next guy, you know, and that kind of sucks to hear. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be in that situation. And not only that, people don't realize judging's hard. Judging's really, really, really hard. It blows me away when people are sitting online questioning the judge's calls.
Yeah.
It kills me, because you got to be a really egotistical, narcissistic person to think that you can judge better than someone who's done this 1,000 times sitting right up against the stage.
Well, that's how they are with everything online. I also just think like the majority of people have never actually been to a show and don't know that there's a significant difference between even the best pitchers and being there in person.
If you're talking about NFL, NBA, listen, you can blow calls. Maybe the ball was hidden, you couldn't see it, you didn't get a good look at it. Blown calls happen. In competition, you see the same thing. There's not going to be blown calls, you know, unless sometimes I'm sure there is, but there's very rarely going to be blown calls. They're right up front against the stage. Everything is exposed. There's nothing hidden. The lights are bright. You can't hide anything. People will complain all day. Oh, this was the wrong call. That was the wrong call. I mean, listen, last weekend, everybody complained about Wesley beating Ramon. And then Tyler got on there and explained exactly why he beat him. And then everybody's going, oh, okay, well, we didn't think of that. You know, I told this story a million times. Tyler made a call about a 212 show, years back. And I guess he didn't know who Boston Lloyd was. So Boston made a video crying about it. And then he texted me and he goes, yo, who is this guy? And I told him who he was. And then he called me. He's like, yo, I don't understand. Like, what are people crying about? So I said to him straight up, I was like, dude, I honestly thought you made the wrong call too. And he goes, yeah, but what about this, and this? And I just went, fuck, I didn't think of that. Like, all right, like I'm wrong. You know, so you don't realize that you might just not be thinking of something that the judges saw. If there's an imbalance, if there's a torn body part, if there's something missing, like everybody was crying about Breon. And then Tyler straight up said, listen, his quad sweep came, it's near gone. It killed him. You know, it destroyed the physique. You know, it killed everything impressive about him, missing that just one very, very important part. And nobody's thinking of that. They're looking at his amazing upper body and shape and back double bicep and his depth and his detail, but it's the whole thing. It's not just areas. And nobody thought of that. So he made it very clear, and he is 100% right. You know, so people need to stop thinking that they know better than the judges and start saying, okay, well, I don't agree with the judge. So what do they see that I don't?
Yeah. I don't know. People always think they know more than they do. That's just how people are. How many
times have you sat in the audience and thought you picked out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 perfectly and you got it wrong?
Yeah.
Probably more than you can count. And that's everybody. That's everybody watching this has done this. Thought they picked out the top 5 and they were wrong. And it's just because they either weren't close enough to the stage to see that's another thing. They weren't close enough to the stage to see what the judges see. The judges see everything. They can see water, they can see folds, they can see things flickering. They can see what you can't see. They're right up against the stage. Pictures don't show everything. Videos don't show everything. And videos and pictures don't show depth. They're 2D. So you
Yeah.
can't see depth. And in person they can. So you're not seeing what they're seeing.
Yeah.
So if you don't agree with them, odds are you're wrong.
Well, people also don't know what to look for. They don't know how to judge. But that's why I'm saying I feel like you would be a good judge because you talk about all this shit. People will say things like, "Oh, Ramon has the best arms," or this or the quads. They judge based off of like one body part that they like, but they're not looking at the overall picture. And
but
you understand that.
I would still have to learn, and it would take time.
Mhm.
And again, I just don't want to be in that position. Like I still to this day, to the point where I'm annoying, bother Tyler all the time. And I'm like, dude, can you explain this to me? Can you explain that to me? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? And 100% of the time when I ask him questions, he teaches me something new. So like, it just makes me realize how much I don't know about judging, because there's a lot of other factors. There's presentation. There's things you don't see in pictures. Like the judge will make a call and everybody be pissed off. And Tyler will be like, yeah, but that guy's stomach hood hung out every time he turned to the side. So the winner didn't win. The second place guy lost.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I feel like you would be a good one, but maybe you'll do it when you're older. I don't know. It just seems like you
Probably not.
are always talking about this.
It's not for me.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever go back to competing or you're completely done? Are you gonna start training?
No.
Let's talk about you sent me your blood work, so I'll pull that up. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna start back to training, but I have no desire to be big anymore.
Are we looking at it now?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Had to make sure
All
I
right.
covered up all that stuff.
All right. So this is your most recent lab work here.
And
When
you
was
can see the
this?
date right there.
Oh, okay. So this is February. No, this is date of
No,
birth.
that's my birthday. The date's over to the side.
Yeah, March. Okay. Yeah, so pretty recent. And what are
Actually,
are you on TRT?
No, I wasn't at this point. I came off 6 weeks prior because I wanted to see what my body really was doing. So I stopped supplements. I stopped my TRT. I didn't do anything to alter this in any way, except I did take HMG. So that might account for the testosterone. But I wanted to see what my baseline was with everything and see how well my body was functioning because honestly, I didn't believe it was going to be this good. Typically, when you get somebody, I've been competing for 19 years. And of those 19 years, I think I competed 14 of those seasons, which beats the living heck out of your body. I've run cycles 2 grams. I have been heavy. I've kicked the heck out of my body. I've gotten to the point at end of prep where I felt like I was going to die. I also used to party when I was younger. From 26 to 30, I was out, every other weekend doing party stuff and all kinds of other stuff that would affect my health on top of bodybuilding. So I figured there's no chance on God's green earth that my blood work will be perfect. And I got this back and I was actually very, very happy. I was very, very shocked that I have absolutely perfect blood work except for my LDL. But anybody who follows me knows I haven't eaten clean food in God knows how many years. I eat like complete garbage, which will explain the LDL. But what people have to understand is when your LDL is like that, now, the range is up to 100 and mine's at 149. That's high, but it's not crazy high. And the fact that my HDL is in range renders that not as bad. And the VLDL is actually more important than the LDL. So as you can see, my VLDL is low, it's in range. So that cholesterol, while it could be better, that's not terrible because the HDL is up. Now, if the HDL was down, that would be very bad. But because my HDL is up, not really a problem. Obviously, I want to improve that, but not really a problem. But I was actually pretty shocked that my blood work was this good because it really doesn't show any sign that I was ever a bodybuilder. And I very, very, very almost never see this from a 20-year competitor over.
Why do you think it's as good?
I don't know. I think it's just my genetics, honestly. I didn't do anything. I did take my health supplements for the majority of my career. I was always big on taking TUDCA. See, I was lucky because Dante Trudel was one of my mentors. So I had a lot of good information on health early and I knew the importance. So I always make sure I took my multi. I always make sure my vitamin D levels were sufficient. I always made sure that I took my Astragalus. I always make sure that I Took my Tutka. I had time periods where I didn't always get my water, but for the most part, I tried to make sure I got my water in. I hate water, but I still made sure I did a good amount of it. I would say most of my career probably did a little over a gallon a day. Probably should have done more, but in prep, I would do a gallon and a half, but most of my years probably around a gallon. But that's still better than what most people do. So I stayed hydrated and I really made sure I took my health supplements. That was very, very important. And it probably played a very large role in why my blood test looks like this. Because there's guys that didn't party, they just bodybuild, and their blood work looks nothing like this in their mid-30s. I've looked at more blood work than you can possibly imagine. And anybody that I've seen competed 20 years over 40 did not look like this. So maybe they gunned it harder than I did, or maybe it's just their genetics. Who knows? But I also took breaks though. I took 9 months off a couple of times, took 6 months off a couple of times. And that
Completely.
meant
No
gear,
TRT.
no TRT, no gym, no food, no nothing, no activity. So just completely rested my body. And I have been completely out of the gym, not beating on my body or competing, and not running cycles for probably the last year and a half. I eat bad, but I haven't done any of that. But I haven't trained either, so I expected my cholesterol to be terrible, but it's not. So I'm going to get back to training. But yeah, I think that it's very important that anybody who's doing this, and especially anybody who takes PEDs, they've got to be on their health supplements. That's why I told people, that's why I signed with HD Muscle. Yeah, I love this company because I really wasn't interested in a lot of, products because I'm not huge on, whey protein and things like that. So, but when I saw the health line, it was funny as I was talking to Dorian Hamilton, I actually posted this conversation. It might be on my page, but like we were going back and forth and I said, you know what, with your health line, it would be really awesome if you did this for kidneys and this for liver and this is for sleep. And he types LOL and he sends me the formulas. It's exactly what I said. At that moment, I was like, all right, I'm good, I'll sign.
Yeah.
But it was like
They're really
that's
good.
what I promote the most because that's very important. And that's why those products are always sold out because now people are getting smart finally. But
They are always
if
fucking
you're
sold out.
because you know what? No matter how much they increase the inventory, the sales increase
Yeah.
because people are understanding that it works and it's becoming popular. There's another major competitor company that I'm not going to name that has garbage. I've gotten tons of bad blood work back from it from clients, and so have my friends. And I'm talking about high-level coaches. I'm not going to name names and make any enemies or name the company, but a lot of it was a very popular company that had a lot of health supplements and continually, constantly getting back high liver values, high kidney values. It was clear that it wasn't working.
Mhm.
To the point where I would joke around. If I got bad blood from a client, I would say, let me guess, you're taking this. And yep. And it's
Mhm.
just like, all right, I'm done with this.
Mhm.
So, there's a lot of coaches that probably most of you guys watching this are following that switched off of those because it just wasn't working. But HD, I trust. I've always seen great results with. I even showed you guys for the people that were following me back in 2021 when I competed, and then I had to fly immediately to Tampa for clients right from the show. So I had no time to do anything. I was water retentive like all hell. My ankles were like this big. And luckily, Mariah from HD, she's one of the owners, brought some with me and gave me a bottle of Kidney HD.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I
Mariah's great.
started double. So I started double dosing. I was taking like 20 a day, and in
Mhm.
3 days, my water was gone.
Wow.
I was like, holy crap! So that's a big one. I make sure that all of my clients, I won't work with somebody who's on PEDs who doesn't take those supplements.
Yeah, no, it's a necessity. They have to take all this shit. But
Yes.
what you said you came off TRT is how long were you off TRT before this? Because your testosterone is fucking 400.
6 weeks. But like I said, I took HMG. So
Okay.
HMG is a combination of LH, FSH. Your LH is what's going to produce your testosterone, luteinizing hormone, that works through your HPTA, your hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis. And that's how your body produces testosterone and sperm. So your fertility is going to come from your FSH, your follicle stimulating hormone, and your testosterone levels are going to come from your LH. So, a little surprising to see this at 410 because HMG is a lot less LH and a lot more FSH. So it's better for fertility. So that's why it drives me nuts when people try to take HCG for fertility. You're taking the wrong thing.
Well,
HCG is for your testosterone.
HCG is usually like the first step. No, if that doesn't work, then you would move to HMG.
That's what they do, but it doesn't work. And this is why so many listen. I've had 7 different people now have babies when their endocrinologist couldn't fix it. because they just don't understand these things. And it's crazy to me. People that have gone through medical school and don't understand this stuff. And to me, you're not going to convince me I'm smarter than somebody who went through medical school. The only thing I believe is that they're too lazy to do their homework and really study and dig and figure this out. One of my clients, actually, their doctor wanted to talk to me, and I just refused because I'm like, you know what? I'm not smarter than you. You just didn't care. So why am I going to tell you? Why am I going to do the work for you and give it to you? You don't care, because you could have figured this out. Any endocrinologist that can't fix fertility, they just didn't try.
Yeah.
So, and
No.
it's very obvious in the literature. We know through literature that LH is testosterone production. We know that FSH is for sperm production and fertility. Yet they prescribe HCG and not HMG for fertility.
HCG mimics LH.
They're just being ignorant. I don't know what it is, but I don't respect somebody who does that.
But I don't
you're dealing with people's lives.
What you're saying obviously is true. It makes sense, but there obviously are still cases where people take HCG, maintain fertility on TRT. There's cases where people don't even take anything, have no FH and LH.
That's probably because they didn't lose their fertility in the first place. Some people don't. Ronnie Coleman didn't take HCG. He's got 8 kids, and he had his kids in the prime of his career.
Exactly. So do you know how that works?
Huh?
How that works? How somebody could blast Tren and have kids while they're on Tren and have no LH, FSH, or take anything for that?
I have my theories on that, but probably a lot of it is genetics. But I do believe that you need some type of androgenic response for that as well. I'm not sure the entire mechanisms, but I do believe you need some type of androgenic response, because I have my people do that when I restore fertility. I don't just have them on HMG. I make them blast tests, because without the test, it doesn't work as well. So typically I'll start them on HMG for a while, and then I'll have them blast some tests on top of it, and that's usually when it happens. So I do believe that you need a certain level of androgens, and what's more androgenic than Tren? So obviously that's why there's a lot of Tren babies. But I also do believe that there's a contrast to it. If you run it for a period of time, it's not as prevalent. Like we all know, when you jump on a cycle, when's your sex drive highest? The first 4 weeks, and then it starts to level off. So I feel like that drastic sharp increase in your sensitivity to it is really what pushes it. So you have a short window. So like if I'm really working hard on trying to restore somebody's fertility, I'll pull them on and off until it works.
Like you're ovulating.
But you know what? But I think that there's a genetic component to fertility, but I've only failed to restore one person's fertility out of everybody that I've worked with. But he was able to get the surgery done where they actually manually extract it, and it worked. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but I'm 7 for 8 on this. Actually, okay. You could call me 8 for 9 on this because one of them has 2 kids.
Ronnie Coleman has all daughters, right?
Not sure.
Have you heard this before? I've heard this multiple times, and I've noticed it in the patterns that all the guys that do have kids while they're on blasting gear, like bodybuilders, it's usually a daughter. Do you think there's some type of correlation there?
I've read some. I honestly didn't dig into this. I do remember reading that it does have some type of correlation. Another thing that people could utilize if they're really trying to determine the sex of their kid that has been. It's not accepted as scientific literature, but it has been bro science. It has been effective. Is the fact that male sperm cells swim faster. So if you start at the very beginning of ovulation, the distance is further. So because the distance is further, the male sperm have a better chance of getting there before the female. So if you're looking for a male, you want to time it where your wife just started.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Since we just looked at your blood work, somebody asked here, does testosterone levels, so how well you what's the word I'm looking for? How you metabolize testosterone, how you metabolize steroids. Does the testosterone, the level you see, how many nanograms, does that determine how well you respond to gear, whether or not you're a hyper responder? Obviously, some people have higher levels to a certain dose than others, but
100%.
Yeah.
I've talked about Luke Carroll often because I know we talk all the time, and he runs blood work so much because he has a situation where he can run constant blood work, so we get a lot of data out of him. But I think he told me the other day he was running a normal dose of HCG and his testosterone was registering like 1,800 or some crap like that. Mm-hmm. He's so hyper responsive, it's crazy. So like if he takes 250 megs a test, it's probably gonna be double what I would get.
Mm-hmm. I've showed you mine before. Mine at 250 on a cruise is like 2,700, and if I'm on 750, mine is over 5,000.
you are hyper responsive. You are very, very responsive to it. So yes, some people are going to be more hyper responsive to PEDs than others. I do think that it has a certain level of metabolism related to it. I have a very fast metabolism, so maybe my body metabolizes everything very, very fast before it can compound. I'm not positive. I'm not sure, so I'm not going to say something I'm not sure of. I just have my theories, but yeah, you're very hyper responsive as well.
But
So
does that level alone mean that that's necessarily going to translate to you blowing up and being like Nick Walker just because you metabolize test well?
There's so many other factors. I've seen people
Yeah.
with low test huge.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of other factors. There's probably factors we haven't even discovered yet. You know, that's one thing that people don't realize is there's probably things that we haven't discovered yet, things that we
Yeah.
don't even know about that go on in the body that we're going to figure out at some point in the future. You know, things like other growth factors, like systematic processes like MGF, for example, is fairly new. I think we figured that out within the last 20, 30 years, something like that. You know, so there's a lot of things that we probably still don't know about, but we know that we can't mimic localized growth factors medically. We can't synthetically reproduce that. We can only reproduce systemic. So, um, you know, there's a number of other factors that are going to play into that. There's genetic health, for example. I tried to push my doses up to what the pros are using. Back in the middle of my career, I couldn't. I just got sick, and I thought it was just a random test flu to go away in a few days. It never went away, and every time I tried it, it came back. I tried to push my trend to 100 a day, which is typically, not, a lot of pros run 100 milligrams a day of trend. Some run even higher, and it's not an uncommon thing you'll see on the national level. People aren't going to like to hear that, and almost all of them will lie to you about it. But that's something very, very typical that big pros will do. I couldn't breathe when I did that. I told this story a million times. Went to the gym, tried to warm up, and I just couldn't catch my breath. And luckily, I was on a short-acting ester, so it took some time. Didn't take a lot of time, but once I got out of my system, I was okay. But I can't run 700 mgs of tren a week. It kicked me. I couldn't train, couldn't move. And
I can.
I tried to run. I ran test and EQ reasonably high, but if I tried to do some of the doses that I've heard from like some of the bigger guys, my body just wouldn't take it. So, it is what it is. If I do 4 shots of alcohol, I'm drunk. My body just doesn't handle a lot of drugs very well. So the ability to handle the drugs and still function is another genetic aspect. That's, something that somebody would really love to have, superhuman. I heard crazy stories about Kai and he still looks relatively healthy,
Yeah.
So yeah, the fact that he did what he did and is still perfect, or seemingly anyway, there you go. Jay Cutler's an extremist. You got to be crazy if you think he ran low doses.
Yeah.
But he's still but Jay also saw his doctors throughout his career, and he's also very smart about it. He really took care of himself because Jay is just a very, very smart and prepared competitor, so I think that might have played a role in him not getting some of the bad effects. But yeah, my body just couldn't handle it. So your ability to handle gear matters. Your growth factor response matters. Another big one that I talk about is insulin sensitivity. Your body's ability to partition and absorb nutrients. Insulin sensitivity doesn't just have to do with carbohydrates. It also has to do with insulin affects triglycerides. It affects amino acids. All of those things. It affects electrolyte balance. So the more sensitive you are, the more responsive you are. And typically, what I find is the best competitors have the best insulin sensitivity.
You
And
could,
again, I keep referencing Luke because I have so much experience with him, but I've seen him full off season run a 4.9, which is what some people are like at 4 weeks out for a show.
I think the perfect example would be yours. Like, look at how yours can get to 280 eating fucking less than 3,500 calories, and he's still lean as fuck.
What is this?
Yours.
Earth?
Yeah.
Urs has a very fast metabolism. He's got a great physique, but he also has a pretty smart coach. So we don't know what's going on there as far as his coach taking care of his health, making sure he comes on and off and monitoring those things. The guy I don't know a lot of what the guy's done. I think his name is Stefan. I'm not sure his name.
I don't know.
I've never met him. I've never talked to him, but from what I've read, the little that I've read and things I've seen him say, it shows me that he knows what he's talking about. So he probably is taking very good care of hers too.
Yeah. I mean, but just the fact that you can get to 275 in an offseason, be that lean and eat 3,500 calories, you have to be very sensitive.
Listen, what do you think Nick Walker eats?
I don't know. I'm not sure. He doesn't eat.
Do you think he's eating 6,000 calories a day? He's not.
He's not. Okay. I don't know. I don't know
Listen,
what his diet is.
Nick's one of my best friends. I can tell you straight up. He probably takes less than anybody on the Olympus stage right now. And
Okay.
nobody's going to believe that.
I believe it. I talked to him, yeah.
He did what he had to do early, right?
Mhm.
And we saw that. But then he corrected that. He fixed that. He got his blood work done. Luckily, because he did it so young, he's still perfectly healthy. His blood work was perfect, except cholesterol. His calcium score was 0, which everybody was ranting and raving about. It was 0. So he's very, very healthy. And now he realizes, listen, he's like, I don't need 30 more pounds of muscle. So why am I going to run all those doses and feel like shit? He runs so little. Sometimes he runs less than what his coach even tells him to run. Obviously, he tells his coach that, but they run even lower than that. And the coach is not even putting him on high doses right now because he doesn't need it. Nick barely touches GH now. He wants to get rid of it completely. So he does almost nothing. He's very smart about it. And look at his size. And he does not eat 6,000 calories. It's just genetic response.
No, but you're saying that he does that now. I think this is something that a lot of people don't understand too, is that you can't look at what Nick or Chris is doing now and, compare, because people say Chris runs minimal amounts of gear, but Chris didn't do that to get to where he is, right? Like there's a huge difference between what you need to do at that point versus getting there.
Everybody's going to do something at the beginning to get there. And if you're smart and you're lucky, like I told you this, I said, we're going to push it young. And by the time, you're on the Olympia stage, say you're 27, 28, I told you, I was like, after the show, we're not remounting, we're just going to come off. And we're going to, just like Chris does, very smart, out of the gym. Don't even touch the fucking weights. Go. I told you, I'm going to send you from fucking Vegas to the islands on vacation. Like, just go. Like, don't worry about, like, stop the rebound and then just do what the hell you want. Give the body a break, So you do it early, you're still young, so you're healthy enough to resist it. When I talked about doing party drugs and stuff, I was in my 20s. If I did that in my 30s, it would not go well. So you want to really hit it hard when you're young and build your base. And then we see now, muscle memory is no longer a mystery to people. People used to think what Kevin Liveroni did was some outlandish alien stuff. And now we're seeing, even I showed you guys that I put on 40 pounds in 50 days because my body had already had that muscle before. So it just came back. I couldn't build that 40 pounds in fucking 5 years if I wanted to, but it came back because I had previously had it.
I did it last year.
Muscle memory is always, so muscle memory is always going to be there. Right now, if I wanted to, I could be 260 in probably 2-3 months if I wanted to. Yeah. And I'm like 215.
Yeah.
So I would bet 2 months I could get there. But you've got that muscle memory now. You don't have to hammer it anymore. It just comes right back. Chris was taking 3 months off, and then he very intelligently does his 1 month of just lifting and reprogramming all the movements and making sure his contractions, making sure there's no imbalances and tightnesses, make sure everything is functioning properly. So technically it's 4 months off.
Wait, but did he do that? I don't think he did that this year with Ronnie.
But he used to do.
Yeah.
He used to do it. I don't know if he's doing it now with Hani, but he used to do it, and he was very known to do it. And by the time he started back, he was huge immediately. So it's not a matter of, having to gun it through your whole life. You want to do it early and then get away from it. And then you don't have to, listen, you might need a little more bicep, a little more tricep. You don't have to blast a high cycle to grow one body part.
Yeah, no, I think people have a very misconstrued perspective of what you need to do. Like, let's take that kid, Sam Sulik, for example, fucking biggest name right now. You see everywhere people talk a lot of shit on this kid and they'll say he's going to be dead by he's 30, 40, whatever. First of all, we don't even know what he's taking. I have no idea what he's taking. Nobody's going to know. But let's say, just for the sake of conversation, he's taking a lot of shit. He's not going to need whatever he's doing now. If he's doing that, he wouldn't need to do that forever. And it's like people who drink a lot in their 20s and they stop. It's not long term.
In that particular instance, I think that certain people have a problem with that because there's a lot of kids that are his age doing that. Yeah. I think he's getting some hate and jealousy because of how popular he is and how much money he's making and his following, and people don't think he deserves it. And I've been vocal about it. I don't think the kid's a bad kid at all. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. I don't hate him. I blame the audience. I blame the kids in the industry because realistically, he has not accomplished anything. And the fact that he was, there for a meet and greet and signing at the Arnold, but they cut out some of the top 5 Olympians, like that's an insult. That's disgusting because he's done nothing to deserve it. He hasn't even gotten on stage. He's never even dieted and been in great shape. So like, what did he do to deserve something like that? So that's where my problem lies. And it's not his fault. Listen, he should accept that. make your money, do your thing. You have a right to enjoy your life and do whatever you want and be successful. So I applaud him for taking advantage of that and doing everything that he can do. And he seems like a very nice kid. He's not the problem. The problem is everybody else. The problem is the people that ran that show that put him in that instead of some of the people that I feel deserved it. It's the people that are following him and praising him and doing all this and making him famous just because they just don't know any better. They're following because their friend followed. They're being a bunch of sheep. You know, the other day I saw a video where he said his pre-workout was 6 ice cream sandwiches. To me, that's asinine. You know, you might say, "Oh, I'm just telling people what I do. I'm not telling them to do it." You damn well know you got 1 million followers. People are going to start copying it. You got to be crazy. You think people can start eating ice cream sandwiches pre-workout because he did it. You know, so people copy, and he does a lot of crazy, reckless stuff. And now here's one thing though: while your health is resilient and resistant, your GI tract is not. Your GI tract takes wear and tear and damage throughout your life. And I was actually known to eat a lot of junk food, and I started having trouble when I was 30. And I didn't even know I had trouble. I actually lost my pro card. I would have won the show. I was told by the head judge that I would have won that show if my stomach didn't blow up on stage because I had a colitis flare on stage. So I would have turned pro in 2017 if my stomach didn't blow up at North Americans. They actually put us back in the lineup and pulled us back out at the end to see if my stomach went down because they thought I had the best package, but they couldn't give it to me because my stomach. So when I met Fran, she worked for some of the world's best GI specialists. She started telling me, "You've got problems." And we started analyzing and assessing. We found out I had colitis, you know, and I didn't even know that was affecting me. I remember when I was in 2015 eating a cheat meal and sitting on the toilet, and my stomach was killing me. And I was just like, it was torture. And I thought, I just wrote it off as like a random incident. No, that was colitis. So, you know, when you do the things that he's doing, I didn't do as bad as he's doing right now. Because he's doing some crazy stuff with the way he's eating and the things that he's drinking, pure sugar and all that stuff. If he keeps this up, he's going to start hating life by the time he's 25, and his career is going to be over, because that's one of your digestion is one of the main reasons behind kidney damage that pros retire, because they can't handle the food anymore. Dexter Jackson retired, Brad Rowe retired, and a lot of others retired just because they can't do the food anymore because of their digestion. And he's going to wreck his digestion real early. Now, luckily for him, and again, like I said, there's educated people that are watching what he was doing. So we saw the changes in his body. When the kid's turning purple, we know your blood pressure's not in range. When you're broken out to high hell, we know that your liver and your kidneys are stressed. You know, so he fixed the acne, so he probably backed down the doses.
I think he takes acne.
He was gunning it.
I'm not sure.
Oh, did he? Okay.
I'm not sure.
He did something. But like the level of acne he had was not just some acne. It's not just some people starting a cycle and getting acne. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And he didn't have it before he did it. So it was caused by what he was doing. But I think the biggest problem right now is the way he's eating. And that wear and tear, he's going to pay for it if he keeps doing it. But hopefully he smartens up. And because there's a lot of people making videos about it, talking about it, smart people that know what they're talking about and are experienced. So if he starts cleaning up what he eats, I don't know if he has the shape to be good, but his career is going to be a lot longer and he's going to look a lot better.
Yeah. Well, you said, so what you said was, you know, he hasn't done anything, all that stuff, which he hasn't in terms of bodybuilding. He's definitely done a lot to build his platform on YouTube. I also think what people do, I've only seen like one of his videos
for his business. I think that he doesn't deserve accolades in the competition field.
No, so that's what I'm getting at. But I think people take a lot of shit out of context and clip it. I don't know. I've seen like one of his videos, but I really doubt he eats like that 24/7. I just feel like that you'd have to be retarded to do that.
I have seen so many videos of him eating bad that
I've seen them too. I've seen them too, but I don't know. I don't watch his full-length videos. But what the reality is that everything is about money. Everything's about business. So bodybuilders do that. They brought him into the Arnold or whatever to get his autograph because it's just going to bring more money in.
It also sends a bad message because listen, when he does a meet and greet, how many people show up?
A lot.
Tons. You think these kids aren't copying him? Who in the right mind trying to build muscle eats ice cream sandwiches pre-workout?
Nobody. But I feel like honestly,
but there's kids that are copying. There's kids copying that right now.
Yes, there is. There probably is. There probably is because people, you know, monkey see, monkey do. This is why I think at the end of the day, he's probably just recording himself for fun and doing whatever. But there is some sort of obligation there. It's like I will never say exactly my cycle because I know, even though I'm not going to talk about my life, but there's an obligation. I know some kids probably some kids get a copy no matter what I do. So there has to be some obligation on my end. But it's the bodybuilders. They just want, you know, money. And it's really their fault for not having integrity, I guess, because it is business. It's about money. They know he's going to bring in money, but then they complain bodybuilders aren't getting enough attention. And it really just comes down to the people in charge having integrity and shifting the focus.
It's not about the bodybuilders getting attention. It's about him getting attention over people that deserve it.
Yes, but it's because he's bringing in money.
But if you think back, even when we first started working together, I don't know if you remember this conversation. One of the first things I said to you is, when you become a very big name, you have a responsibility.
Yes.
Because no matter what you say, people are going to copy. You can even say, I do this, don't do it. They're still going to do it. And I said, listen, it'd be great to have somebody that's finally educated and shares that education with the masses and teaches kids the right way to do things. Says, listen, I think Bumstead's awesome, but he doesn't share anything with anyone about what he does and what they should be doing and educating them. And he could be making a massive impact with it. So I think that he should. I mean, listen, it's up to him what he wants to do with his life. I have no say in that, and I have no right. But in his situation, I feel somebody should. So I said to you, when you become really, really popular, you're going to have a responsibility to do the right thing. And you can either do something positive by the industry, or you can do something selfish, or you can hurt them.
I mean, that's what this podcast is for. This is what all my content, I try to provide value and education in it. And people, the thing that comes with that, though, is constant controversy and arguments, and it's fucking stress. It's just people want to think they know more than they do.
Okay. Discussion is okay. Arguments are okay, because people are going to have opinions. People are going to have different ideas. Sometimes you're going to be right. Sometimes you're going to be wrong. If you guys look back, if you look at the podcast I did this on purpose with my first and only coach when I was 20 years old, Ken Skip Hill and Andrew Berry and Scott McNally. We did a podcast. And I literally pulled up posts that I made when I was 20 years old, and we made fun of myself. I wrote something about doing pull-ups on a lat pull-down bar. You just set it on the stack and it increased stability, and it was completely the stupidest thing I've ever read. But I wrote that. That's what I came up with at the time. We're all gonna learn and become better. But if you go read some of my posts from 20 years ago, I was an idiot. So it is what it is, and we work to improve, and that's all we can do. But I don't think there's any problem with discussion. You never know when someone's going to say something that you didn't think about. Sometimes it's a very, very simple answer that you completely overthought. You missed the forest for the trees.
Mm-hmm. But it's what you were saying about the industry, and Sam has this obligation or whatever. It's not like you're saying, it's not his fault. So what do you suggest he does in that situation? The industry are bringing him in when he's never competed. It's obviously he's going to take that part. He's going to make money. There's no reason for him not to.
I suggest he's doing what he's doing, because you know what? Good for him. You get one life. And if you're not doing anything dishonest, he's not doing anything dishonest. He's not deceiving anybody. He's not lying to anybody. He's not robbing anybody. He's not purposely hurting anybody. Doesn't seem like a bad person. He doesn't seem like he has an ego. He personally is not doing anything wrong. He should accept it. Everything that he's done, he should accept 100%. If I was his friend or I knew him, family member, and he said, hey, listen, they cut out a bunch of Olympians and they want me to do it, I'd say, go do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Because you know what? If they invited him, why not? He's not doing anything wrong. He didn't walk in there and say, hey, screw these Olympians. Why don't you just replace them with me? Their idea.
So you think the problem is the industry?
The problem is the industry and the people. The problem is absolutely not him. He's doing what he needs to do and what he should do. And I think everything he's doing is what he should do, except talk about all the crap that he eats on camera. Maybe leave that. If you're going to do it, leave it out.
Mm-hmm. But then people will say there is some level of dishonesty to it because he's really doing this shit.
Omission is not dishonesty.
True.
And if you're omitting something for the greater good because you don't want people to copy it and do stupid things and hurt themselves, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you could just say, I have cheat meals sometimes. It's not.
What would happen if a Mr. Olympia jumped online and said, I use DNP to get ready for the show, and I run 1,000 and I run 1,000 milligrams of it, which is an insanely crazy dose.
You'd die.
Well, he'd be telling the truth, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He'd probably hurt a lot of people doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would be the right thing to do? Keep your mouth shut.
Definitely. I see what you're saying, but I don't know. It's really the industry's problem. They need to fix it if they want bodybuilding. I feel like this wouldn't be a thing if Joe Weider was still around. Because from what I understand, Joe Weider helped athletes a lot, and he wanted it to be a thing. And athletes get no help from the industry.
Entirely different if Joe Weider was still here, but I think that Tyler is bringing back what Joe Weider wanted. slowly. And I think Arnold is helping because when Arnold took a shot at Kai's stomach after winning the Arnold on stage during his victory speech, I think that was a major turning point.
Yeah.
Like Arnold literally made fun of his stomach during Kai's victory speech on stage at the Arnold. And I think that was a big turning point. And Arnold started really emphasizing posing and how much posing should matter. And it really does. And he brought attention to it. So I think between, Arnold's influence and what Tyler's doing with the industry and the direction that he's driving. So I think the thing is, Tyler grew up a fan of this, and he loves it and he enjoys it. And, he takes pride in it. It's his baby. So he doesn't treat this like, oh, I just want to make money. And like he treats it like he loves it and he wants it to be what he grew up loving. So he's doing it that way, and I think it's becoming very effective, versus the direction that it was going in was not very good. So I think that helps.
I think it's almost like it's ass backwards the way that they have it, because like I said, the way it was with Joe Weider and him helping on the athletes, it's like everything falls on the athlete now. It's your job to market, it's your job, which isn't necessarily bad, but they always talk about, well, how are they going to pay more if there's not more traffic? And it's the industry, it's the federation's job to create that. They should be doing more marketing. They should be uplifting the athletes.
Look at what's going on. Look at what's going on. The new company Mit45, they donated a lot of money, and now what happened is a lot of the prize money went up, and Tyler's constantly working to get the prize money up and do better productions. I don't know, people didn't notice. Tyler's dad, I think, J.M. Mannion, had a big part in redesigning the way the USA was. Now, I showed up at the USA one year and I was like, yo, what the hell happened? And JM told me, he's like, we got rid of the person that was doing it and we decided to do this the right way. And the production was like night and day. And now you notice all the productions are really, really good. So I think it's going now back in the direction that Joe Weider would have wanted it to go. I think it was straying for a long time and it was going to die. And then they completely reversed it and fixed it. And they're doing a good job of keeping people out of it that are, selfish and have selfish intentions, and, that will hurt the industry in favor of their monetary gains and things like that, or their personal gains. That's one of the reasons why they split with the IFBB from across the, over in Europe. Now we call it the fake IFBB because so many of those people were corrupt. Jim Mannion, Tyler's grandfather, he got rid of him. He's like, you're not doing this. He's like, this is ridiculous. Like he got a lot of proof that people were being paid off for pro cards, and you could literally see blatant garbage on stage. Like the guy winning, shouldn't even have been in fifth. And he's like, this is going to stop or you're going to be gone. And they were fighting with him. He got rid of him, So I think that they completely I don't think it's completely fixed yet, but I think they're really working on it. And I think that they're bringing it back in the direction that Joe Weider wanted it to go. And plus the addition of Classic is major.
Yeah. I mean, the industry is more popular right now than it probably ever has been. It's the perfect
addition
opportunity.
Of wellness is major too.
Yeah, it is huge.
Because listen, bikini girls, what if you just genetically had big legs? Your butt was too big. You had wide hips. What were you going to do? You had no chance. You had no division. You didn't want to bulk up the figure, but you couldn't get small enough for bikini. You had nothing. And listen, let's be honest. In today's world, people like thickness. They like big legs. They like big butt, tiny waist, things like that. They like those curves. They like the hourglass figure. So some people are going to like the bikini look. Some people are going to like the wellness look. And I think it's doing more to bring people into the industry. And it allows these girls. Listen, these wellness girls, they train like bodybuilders. They squat. They balls to the wall. They train. You can't tell me. People were critical of bikinis. I've even said in the past, like I could probably go into a strip club and pull a stripper out that's doing coke and put her on stage and she'll do pretty well. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's not. Some of the girls really do have to work hard.
And stripping, first of all, stripping is hard to do. That's their work. Those are workout. I don't know.
I've been to a strip club twice in my life. I don't like them, but I think that a lot of these girls really do make improvements. Once you start paying attention, you notice like they'll improve their shoulders, they'll improve their legs, they'll work on their balance, So like there was more to it than I had initially realized when I had made comments like that. So, I respect bikini more now, but the wellness girls, those girls work hard. They work crazy hard. And I think it's a great addition. I think it does, adding wellness and men's classic has done a lot for the industry, because it brings the aesthetics back. It gives it the potential to be mainstream.
Yeah. Oh, well, what I'm getting at is here, the industry has enough money. They're bringing in people, has popularity, but I feel like it is the industry's job, just like it's the NFL or the MLB, to make it mainstream and take care of the athletes and make their names, rather than like I have to post on Instagram every day to get myself popular. Like Tom Brady doesn't have to fucking do that, right? We have to build. I feel like it's the IFBB's job to make it mainstream.
let's be real, first of all, this is never going to be mainstream because of the PED aspect, because it's completely obvious.
Yes.
And people don't realize, people hate to hear this, but all of your favorite athletes use steroids. You know, and NFL, NBA, all of them. Listen, just think logically. You got a guy that's behind you, your backup, who's pretty good, and he's willing to take the PEDs, and he's going to take your job. So you're going to give up your dream and everything you've worked for your whole life out of on a moral, you know, ground, and lose millions and millions of dollars and have a great life. No, you're not.
Mhm.
You know, or if you're just a mediocre at your position and a little bit of a boost can make you great, and it makes the difference between tens of millions of dollars, you're gonna do it. It's easy to sit home and say, no, I wouldn't. If you were in that spot and you worked 20 years for it and it was your dream and it's all you've ever done your whole life, yes, you would.
Mhm.
So 90% of the people in professional sports are taking something, whether it be GH, whether it be PEDs. So they're taking something to improve their performance. Didn't Tiger Woods get caught on PEDs or something like that? I don't know.
I
But
feel like he
somebody
did. I don't
But
remember.
listen, we the Tour de France guy, we call it doping with EPO. Like, everybody's going to do something for an edge. It's just a matter of whether or not you get caught, you know,
Mhm.
and people don't realize that. But in our industry, it's blatant. So it's never going to be mainstream because of that, because there's such
But it
a,
was. It was at one point. It was on ESPN.
because people didn't really, this was a long time ago, and it was before the whole WWE steroid thing. Once that whole thing blew up, that really hurt, you know, it hurt our industry and that industry,
Okay, but look at the
you know. So
WWE. It's bigger than fucking the IFBB, and everybody knows those guys are running gear.
but initially it hurt them. Initially it hurt them. And that was also when they were trying to do the WBF, if you remember. And then because everybody had to compete naturally, the physiques went to crap.
Uh-huh.
Like, they were showing up looking like they were 12 weeks out
Yeah.
with no muscle.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, that's what really crashed the WBF trying to compete with the IFBB, you know, because they couldn't do that anymore. So, you know, I think that we're never going to be completely mainstream because of those aspects, but I think that it can be more mainstream. It can draw more popularity. Look at what Chris Bumstead has done single-handedly.
But that's what I'm saying, though. Chris did that. So now, do you feel like, because it goes back to the thing where we're talking about Sam being, you know, brought in
The only
over the
person in
athletes?
history that can, Chris is not going to be the only person in history that can do that.
No, but I'm saying, don't you think that the federation itself should be focused on building it up and promoting the athletes to create more of as close to a mainstream aspect as they can to make it, you know, just a bigger sport and help draw audience to athletes rather than the athletes having to bring in an audience themselves and solely rely on their own content?
Money and resources, and this industry doesn't make enough yet.
I feel like they make a lot. I don't know where the money goes.
They make decent money, but nobody is getting rich off of this. Nobody in the organization itself is getting like rich off of this. So there's not enough money to go into marketing and promoting everything. And then what do you market? What do you promote? Who? How? You know, like, you've got to have a team put that together. That costs money. You've got to, you know, do ad campaigns and things like that. That costs money. One of my old God, I was like 21 years old. One of my personal training clients was one of the people who headed up marketing campaigns for Verizon. And every time she had to stop training with me, she would tell me, she's like, for the next 4 or 5 months, she's like, they own me. She's like, I can't leave my house. She's like, but they pay me this. And it's holy crap. Like, that's what a marketing campaign costs. Like, I can't say it, but you wouldn't believe it. Big marketing campaigns by a real serious good company are insane numbers.
I mean, yeah, I
And
fucking believe it.
the money's just not there for it. So they got to rely on the athletes to do it.
It's
And if you
unfortunate.
promote yourself, you make money.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like I feel like in the next 10 years, things are probably going to be significantly different.
Well, I think that more and more people are being drawn into it again because of Chris Bumstead. And now in Brazil, this is becoming huge, and they're overtaking the damn industry. They're getting really good in every single class. So I think as far as like South America, they're doing a really good job over there. I think I don't think they're doing as good a job as they could in Europe. You know, Europe, Asia, Russia, Australia. I think they could do better. But as far as South America and North America and Canada, they're doing a very good job. But it's going to be up to the athletes. So we're going to need more Chris Bumsteads, but they're going to come.
Okay. I've got a couple questions that we're going to go over here before
Go ahead.
before we wrap it up. I just got a few here. First one is, I already know the answer to this because we've covered it numerous times in the past and on podcasts, but maybe we can recap real quick here. Is carb cycling a tool worth considering? Yes.
Everything is a tool worth considering. And I teach
Everybody
this in my-
carb.
I teach this in my apprenticeship program, and I've taught this in my contest prep course. And I will tell anybody that I talk to that's trying to learn, you need to learn how to do everything, because what you need to do is what that person's body tells you to do. I can't stand when a coach just has one method of doing things and people come to them and just like, oh no, you got to do it my way. Listen, some people need keto. Some people need high fat keto. Some people need low fat keto. Some people need cyclic keto. Some people need high carbs, low carbs, high protein, low protein. They need a balance. Like, everybody is going to need different things. And then sometimes the same people are going to need different things at different points. And if you're not able and experienced to use all methods, then you're not equipped. You're not equipped to do it. If you just run a carb cycling diet, then when somebody's in a situation where they need something else, you're not equipped to do it. If you just run keto, like Dave Palumbo did for a long time, when it comes time where keto is no longer needed, what happens? You're in trouble. What did we see in that situation? We saw for a while he was running people on keto and then just carbing them up without acclimating them back to carbs. And what happened? They were getting on stage decent, but they were all bloated up. Big waist, big bloated waist and everything, because they didn't tolerate the carbs well. He didn't prime them and prep them for it. He learned from it, I guess, after a year or two. But initially, when he was first pushing keto real hard, everybody was having trouble with their stomachs on stage, as far as what I saw anyway. So, that was, a big problem, because that was the only thing he knew how to do at the time. And that was the only thing he was promoting at the time. So I think you need to be able to do a diverse range of things. I think carb cycling is phenomenal. I think that a lot of coaches are very, very successful with it. I think there's many different ways to carb cycle. As well as I do. I'm not going to go into detail here, but the way I design my programs is a carb cycle. It's a natural carb cycle. I'm not doing it on purpose, but I'm making sure it's on specific days for a specific reason. So it's more of an accurate carb cycle. But yeah, I do that. I do a standardized diet. I do that with, I will do everything you can think of based on what the body needs. I will listen to the body and I will do it. And that's it.
Okay. Well, let's make this as simple as possible. Because I know why they're asking this, because I constantly talk about having carbs lower on rest days, and people will qualify, oh, it's carb cycling. Why would I lower my total caloric intake on a rest day? And pretty much I explain this all the time. Every fucking bodybuilder does this. Every coach I've never seen, unless there's specific situations, the rest day is almost always going to be somewhat lower in total caloric intake, primarily coming from carbs. So people don't understand what the purpose of that is.
I don't see very many coaches purposely doing it. I actually started talking about this in 2015 with the Geared Up podcasts. And it's funny, I still get messages to this day thanking me. Say, oh, I'm a coach today and have a full-time career because I learned from your podcast. I love when I get those messages, but I still get those to this day. I used to get 50 a week right after the podcast every weekend, because of people learning and loving from that. And I'm talking about pros, I'm talking about coaches, big names that loved watching that. And, I think that, it's, people haven't caught up yet. I think people don't use logic a lot. I think they don't really think. The way they lower the calories on the off days is just eliminating the pre and intra food.
Yeah.
That's how they think they're lowering the carb, but they still have the same meal 1 through 6, 1 through 5. And I think that's wrong, because you don't need carbohydrates on those days. There's nothing you're doing that requires that. And now you might need carbs the next day, but how do I fix that? My cheat meals are always the last meal of the day. I don't put my cheat meals on training days. I put it in the last meal of the off days. One, because you're starving and you're more likely to absorb that rather than store it, and it'll prime you for the next day. So almost all my off days are 0 carbs, and for that reason, because that's the energy substrate, that's the macronutrient that I feel like is least needed. You still need protein for recovery. You still need fats for recovery. You do not need carbohydrates for recovery. So that's where the calories are going to come from. Now, don't get confused and think that I'm saying that it's going to increase your insulin sensitivity by eating less carbs. It's the less calories total, but carbs is where I pull it from, because that's what's not needed.
But
and you're never going to win that logical argument with me.
No, I mean, it is kind of just basic logic when you understand how everything works. But having those lower carbohydrate intake days, it's not just the intake, it's the timing as well, that you're spending a lower time with lower blood glucose. No, that's going to help improve the insulin sensitivity.
Yeah, of course, but that's a result of lower calories. So Yeah, that's another, good point. The longer you're exposed to insulin, the more resistant you're going to be to it, which is why I hate when people use Lantus on bulk diets, because you have a constant influx of insulin all day, and that will cause sensitivity issues. Whereas if you use insulin correctly, people talk about cycling it. How long can I use insulin? Theoretically, you could use it forever if you're using it correctly. You don't have to come on and off of it if you're using it right. I've used insulin more times than I can count to actually fix somebody's sensitivity. If somebody's a type 2 diabetic, what is one of the medications they get? Insulin.
Yeah.
To fix it. So, and now people are trying to, lose body fat, get leaner, improve everything. What do they have? Ozempic. What does Ozempic do? It releases more insulin. But it doesn't constantly release more insulin. It releases more insulin in relation to your food. So it's not an all day thing. It's a when you need it thing.
Yeah.
So I think that, yes, lower carbohydrates on off days should be a standard throughout the industry. You can get as many people as you want to disagree with me. They're going to lose that argument.
It is just basic.
A rarity with somebody with a very, very crazy fast metabolism, or somebody with a very heavy manual labor job.
Yes.
Those people I'm not going to put on zero carbs on their off days because they need energy. They need glucose. They're physical.
Yeah, no, there's always other variables and factors to take into consideration. Every individual is be different. I've had guys, very high on both days. I have people like, even we did this. If you just need to get acclimated to eating a certain amount, we'll just keep everything the same 7 days a week so that we can even just get used to eating and then, push the training day up from there. But a lot of people just get confused because you're like, don't I need the calories on rest days? And they want to make up with all this extra fat and protein just to match the same amount of calories and just reduce the carbs. And that doesn't make sense.
To make sure people don't get confused, when we did that, you and I, we didn't do that for insulin sensitivity reasons. We did that for you being able to eat reasons. And I even told you, I was like, listen, at I don't know what exact times we suggested, but I was like at 9, 11, 1, whatever our times were. I said, I don't care if you finish the meal. I want food in your mouth at those times. So you've been acclimated to eating at those times. For you, it was programming your body to accept food and prepare for food at those times. So it wasn't a matter of sensitivity. It was to get you on a schedule, get you on a regimen, and get you doing it. So that was the purpose of that.
Yeah. Which I've also emphasized too that people who have trouble eating is too. And maybe you could give some insight here is that, one of the biggest things you could do is get into a set schedule to program yourself to eating at certain times and be consistent with that, have your circadian rhythm in check and just basically get your body work like clockwork. But I guess for on top of that, any guys who really do struggle to eat and there's somebody like me or you where you could hard gainers, right? Just, have trouble really putting on food and putting on size and pushing food. What tips do you have regarding that?
I mean, listen, getting on a schedule is one of the most important things that you can possibly do. And anybody who's watching this, I'll even challenge you. You go home and test this yourself and you come back and you're going to tell me I was right. But if you have trouble eating a certain amount of times and, you're late on your meals, whatever you're having struggle getting your meals, set your times and just make sure you're getting food at those times every single day without fail, and then slowly increase those amounts. And then probably 2 to 3 weeks in, don't even look at your watch. Wait till you're hungry. Look at the clock. I guarantee you it's the right time. Your body will just start getting hungry at those times, knowing it's time to eat.
But what else? What if somebody really can't really just doesn't have a big appetite? Say they're even doing that, right? And there's only up to a certain point where the volume of food is just, I'm going to gag, right?
Point where the volume of food is really affecting you like seriously, then the volume of food is not what your problem is. Your problem could be digestion. Your body could be assimilation, absorption. It could be a number of different things. It could be your body resisting. It could be liver stress. Could be GI disorders. Could be inflammation. Could be a million different factors. So I don't think anybody should be eating till they're sick. Or like where they're just like gagging on the food and can't get it down. So that's not a good idea. I think that if that's what's going on, then you need to start resetting things and reassess things. And there's not one way to do it. You need to hire somebody that knows how to do it. So this sport blows my mind. Nobody would ever try to learn baseball, football, basketball without a coach. Never, 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 never. But yet everybody thinks they can do it with this.
No,
and arguably there's more nuances and complexities to this than there is in those sports. So, it just blows my mind. 9 times out of 10, you need a coach. You need somebody who can help you, somebody that can teach you. Nobody says you need the most expensive coach. Nobody says you need a crazy coach. Listen, even if a coach is not super advanced and they're not super popular, if you know nothing and you're brand new, they're going to be able to teach you something. So maybe start there, and then, as you get better, start scaling up the level of coach that you work with, because like me, for example, I don't work with complete beginners. I'm not going to sit there and teach somebody how to do a bicep curl and tell them how many calories is in a gram of protein. I'm not going to tell them, I'm not going to do that basic stuff. So I'm not going to take a full out beginner. I'll take a young kid who's been doing this, who's, who understands a little bit. I have 17-year-olds. I've had 16-year-olds. I have a bunch of 19-year-olds, and they're learning, and I'm teaching them and whatnot, but they still came to me with something. I'm not going to work with somebody who knows nothing.
Yeah. But don't confuse that.
You could, what is that?
I would say don't confuse what you're saying with you're always going to be starving and hungry, because there is a point if you're somebody who's to eat a lot where it will be uncomfortable.
Listen, if you're trying to put on unnatural mass, this is mostly goes for like open bodybuilders and like the bigger women's divisions, like women's physique and women's bodybuilding. There's going to be points where you just don't want to eat because your body just doesn't want to get bigger, and you're going to have to push it. And when you push those set points, sometimes then it becomes easier. The first time I hit 260, I really had to push it. Every meal, I felt like crap. I didn't want to eat all day, and I pushed it. But then the next time I got to 260, it was easy, and I ate less calories. And then the next time I got 260, it was even easier. So sometimes you just have to break that weight barrier and just get to that new level, and then your body will accept it more. And then you can be a little bit more comfortable. But usually when you're trying to push unnatural mass, at some point it's going to get uncomfortable, and you just got to do it. And that's why it's important to learn how to eat. That's another skill that people don't have. They don't learn how to eat. If competitive eaters train themselves to eat, they literally practice eating. You can learn how to eat. It's a skill. You can learn. One of the main things that they do is they learn how to bypass the gag reflex by, drinking tons of fluid and expanding their stomach. And they bypass that gag reflex, and that's why they can eat so much. You can train yourself to do that. So sometimes you just have to train yourself to eat. Kai Green ate ungodly amounts of food. Do you think he could always do that? No, he learned how to do that.
Big spoon.
Huh?
The big spoon.
Well, what I used to do when I was struggling with the meal is I played games. So I would pull up a game on my phone and I do this whenever I have anxiety or stress too. I still do it to this day. I'll pull up a game because when I'm really focused on a game, I can't think about anything else. You can't daydream while you're trying to play a speed game. You got to think about what you're doing with the game. So it kind of shuts your mind off in a way. So I take a bite, play my game, take a bite, play my game. And all of a sudden I look down, the plate's empty. Put my fork down, it hits the plate, and there's nothing there.
That's a good point, because now that you bring it up, it draws something to my attention. There is a huge mental aspect to it too, because I'm thinking, every time I've like been in a rush and I have to go somewhere, I'm getting ready, and I'm like shoveling a meal down, you just get it done. Like you're not even focused on it, but you're sitting there. When you sit there and eat it, it's just so much more, dreadful.
You're talking about being distracted, because if I'm ever forced to eat in short time, that's not a very good idea. It's not going to work out very well for you if you're trying to rush the meal. I thought that's what you were getting at. But if you're distracted, yes, it absolutely helps. 100% of the time it helps.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So it's just the fact that you're not sitting there thinking about it, so hyper focused on the food.
Do some work, watch a YouTube video, watch something that's educational. But the thing is, when you're watching something educational, you can still glance off, get distracted and whatnot. In a game, you have to be interactive. So it really forces your attention. So that's why I play games.
Okay. That's a good idea. I have to try that. Okay. Another thing would be make your food taste good. That's a huge part.
That's actually a very, 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 very big one. I was never able to do that because I can't cook, and I just don't like the way clean food tastes. I was raised on junk, so that's my palate. That's just the way it is. So don't raise your kids on junk food, or that's what they're going to want to eat all their lives, developmental years. So I wish that my parents fed me more clean food when I was young, but it is what it is. But I'm never going to enjoy clean food. But for the most part, you can make your food taste good. So if you don't make your food taste good, yeah, it's going to be hard to eat. And yeah, if you don't have multiple ways to make your food, it's going to be hard to eat because you're going to get sick of the same flavors. So if you have a selection of flavors and you rotate it and you make it taste good and you make it fresh, then it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to eat. If everybody notice you eat meal prep a lot easier than the ones you prep.
Yeah.
Also another factor is when you're eating, when you're cooking, your olfactory, your sense of smell, and you're smelling everything, sometimes it can desensitize you to the food, and then you don't want to eat it. So it's always going to be better if somebody else makes your food, if you're lucky enough to have that. Or if the food is pre-prepped, so you're not sitting there cooking it and then having to eat it. Because I noticed that makes it harder. And when I was competing, it was always easier for me to pull a meal out of the fridge and eat it than it was to cook that meal and then eat it.
That's interesting. Yeah, it makes sense though. What do you think is one of the biggest things that's commonly overlooked in an off season?
Consistency. I think that people can't stay consistent for long enough, and they think that they don't realize that consistency really, really matters. This adds up, this compounds, and too many gaps in between, you interrupt the compounding. So like people will think, oh, I had 6 great days this week. Great. That's not going to get you very far, or I only missed, like, I remember I keep saying I have to put this post back up, but I did the math. I could actually do it.
Miss the meal. I already know you're going to say, you missed this many meals. It adds up to the fucking this. Yeah.
So like, this is for everybody watching. You miss 1 meal a week, 500 calories, right?
500 calories.
Times 52 meals a year, times 52 weeks in a year, that's 26,000 calories you just missed.
There you go.
1 meal a week, you miss 26,000 calories a year. Now,
all the
imagine
little
if you're
shit.
missing multiple meals. Imagine if you're missing multiple meals.
Mm-hmm.
If we missed 1 meal a day, that's 182,000 calories that you missed for the year. So it adds up real quick. People that are not consistent, they don't realize consistency is enormous when you're trying to grow. The bigger you get, the more consistent you have to be. Most of the best bodybuilders in the world probably haven't missed a meal in 10 years.
I did a podcast.
Imagine going that long.
Yeah, I'll pull it up here just so you see. I sent you this to you before, though. I did a podcast with Nas here, and it's a really good example of this. If you look at this transformation is one off season, right? And he doesn't take a lot of gear. He doesn't take growth hormone at all. And he basically said that what allowed him to, I think the difference is like 30 pounds here or something like this. And the difference that allowed him to make this much progress in the year was literally just being on point with everything like clockwork, no missed meals, like literally treating every day of the offseason like it's a fucking prep. And he said all the little shit, that is what made the significant difference in how he was able to grow so much in 1 year.
People allow themselves excuses too much. They'll say, oh, I missed a meal because of this. I missed because of that, because I was doing this, because I was doing that. You know what? Great, but it still is what it is. And I tell people all the time, like, you get on stage and tell the coach, there's no field on the application that says what went wrong. Listen, you got divorced, your house burned down, whatever happened. Guess what? You're still second. They're not gonna push you in first because they feel bad for you. It is what it is. No matter what it is that has happened, it still is what it is. So no matter what excuse you have, it doesn't change your circumstance. And I tell them, no matter what the circumstance, you'll figure it out. Branch Warren, I believe, turned pro working from like 4 a.m. to like 9 p.m. or some shit like that, or something crazy like that. Like, what was his excuse? He didn't make one. He just did it because it's what he needed to do because he wanted to win. So there's a lot of people that are like that. Story that I've told before. He might not like me telling this, but Jay Cutler was at a pool party and, doing some questionable things that he got from one of my friends that makes you completely not able to eat whatsoever. Like if people who know what I'm talking about, you'll puke even thinking about food. And he brought a cooler in, and like clockwork, every 2-3 hours, he was eating a giant plate of grilled chicken. And everybody was just mind blown, like, how?
Yeah.
Because it's Jay Cutler, because there was no stopping him, because no matter what he had to do, he will do it. There was no stopping him.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset that wins, and that's going to be the best people. You can't stop them. There's no excuse. If Hadi's car broke down and he was an hour away from a meal, he'd run to a diner. Like he would he'd probably have a meal with him, but they're going to find a way. They're just not going to take an excuse.
Yeah, is leaving no stone.
And those are the people that succeed, the people that don't make excuses and they find a freaking way. Like look at Hunter Labrada. How long was he having digestive trouble and he couldn't eat and his stomach hurt? Still got his meals in there, didn't he? As much as he was suffering, as much as it was wrecking his moods, making him miserable, did it anyway, didn't he? So people with their excuses, you can make your excuses, and maybe you'll accept the excuse, and that's okay. But you're not going to change the result with an excuse.
So even one meal a day throughout an off season can make a significant difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah, it's crazy. The last thing I'll ask before we wrap this up here is, how do you get into coaching? And what do you think some good sources are to learn from? How do somebody who wants to be in, your position get to the point of maybe even coaching, even lifestyle, or just, high level athletes too? How would you start that process?
In today's climate, I wouldn't even suggest people try to get into coaching, because the field is getting so saturated now that unless you're standout, it's going to be hard to do this for a living. There's a lot of people right now that are trying to get into coaching that can't do this for a living because there's so I don't know many competitors that don't have clients.
Yeah.
I don't think I know a single competitor that doesn't coach people, and then there's people that don't even compete that coach people. And like, there's just so many people coaching now that unless you have something that makes you stand out, you're going to have a very hard time succeeding. So my suggestion is spend the time educating yourself. Don't try to jump into coaching right away. Gain the experience with yourself. After you gain some experience with yourself, coach some other people for free. Yes, free for a while. Gain some experience there. Like, look, listen, when I took on Nelson and Kyle back in the day, they never coached anybody, and they've never really even competed. So who in the right mind would have considered them as a coach, except that I put my cosign on it and I guaranteed it. But one of the first things they did is they both took on 20, 30 clients for almost nothing. And the deal was, you're going to get free coaching and we're going to gain experience. But the whole thing behind that was, I'm going to insure the work because I'm going to review it. So that they're not going to make mistakes because I'm the insurance policy. But they did a lot of free coaching in order to learn and improve. And then they had very low rates when they first started to get another big roster, but they didn't even try to make serious money for probably a couple of years because they wanted to get good at the job first. And then they got really, really, listen, look at them. They're two phenomenal coaches, but that's the process that they went through. They didn't get greedy. They weren't trying to make money in the first couple months, and that's the way you should do it. You need to get educated. And I tell people, I even said this the other day, a lot of people want to do apprenticeships now. I realize mine is expensive, mine is exclusive, it's very hard to get in, and I don't have a lot of people, but I'm not the only resource. Don't get discouraged because I can't take you. There's a lot of other people that are doing mentorships that are not that bad. Listen, you're not going to have a perfect mentorship with everybody who knows everything, and they might always be right, but it's going to accelerate things. And one of the biggest things that I do in my program is all of my contest preps. We have group chats with my apprentices in them. So they're getting secondhand experience watching what I'm doing the whole time. And then I'll explain it in our private group chat. So we're getting lessons constantly all day, and they're getting real world experiences watching my calls and then seeing my explanations. So that's a very, very big part of mentorship for me. Arguably, that's more important than the meetings we have in the lessons. And I told them that. And I think that anybody listening to this that runs a mentorship program, if you're not doing this, you're doing the program with one hand tied behind your back, because that's going to really make a big difference for them, because it's experience. Education is nothing without experience. I don't care what degree you come out of college with. I don't care what you learn. I don't care what courses you've taken. You're still not a good coach until you've got experience and you've done it and you've been successful. So experience matters, just as much as how much because I know people that don't know a lot who are decent coaches, just based on experience. They've done it enough times. Chris Aceto even jokes all the time. He'll say, listen, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. But he's done it he's educated. So he jokes, but he is educated. And he wrote a book on fat loss and contest prep. So, you can't say he's not educated, but he jokes about himself not being educated. He teases, obviously he is, but he'll tell you most of it is because he's done it and seen it so many times. He knows what to do in every scenario. Nothing is new to him anymore. Any problem he comes upon, he's probably seen it 100 times. So he knows the answer. So experience is what's going to matter most. So you need to gain an education, and then you need to gain experience before you even think about making this a career. And the thing is, I think everybody thinks that you just sit home and do nothing as a coach and you just get to do whatever you want all the time. That's not how this works. Today I had 3-hour phone calls, working on check-ins, and I was late jumping onto this. We're actually an hour late getting onto here because it took me to get to it, and I didn't plan my day accordingly. But you're not just going to be sitting on your ass doing whatever you want all day. If you are, you're probably a crap coach. So that's not what this is. And there's a lot of turnover too. So it's not super steady unless you become really, really popular.
Yeah. No, a lot of people don't understand how important experiences is. It's obviously because we all have the whole Dunning-Kruger thing and everything's, information is just that simple and it's not that complex when it can be. It's simple. What do you say?
The whole thing about Dunning-Kruger is you don't know what you don't know. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You don't. How could you know what you don't know? So
you only know with experience. Exactly.
Listen, when I was your age, I thought I knew a lot. Now looking back, I didn't know anything at all. Even I said when I was doing the Geared Up podcast when I think I was 30 years old, I knew a lot. I don't know anything near what I know now. You know, so you're going to continually get better and continually get smarter over time. So you just need to continually gain that experience and keep an open mind and learn, because as soon as you stop learning and you have a closed mind, that's when you end up getting in trouble. Like the people with the research stuff. I hate the research-based people that are like stuck and adhered only to science, because just because there's not a research paper proving something doesn't mean I'm not going to do it, you know, because
Yeah.
the running joke is now, how many times have I been ahead of science and said something that science said something different, and then they redid it and all of a sudden I'm correct, you
Yeah.
know, and it's not because I'm super smart, it's because I paid attention and I use logic.
There's just so much context and so much nuance within everything, and you can't see that until you have the experience. That's why, like you said, you do the thing with showing your preps, which I saw, and it does help a lot because you're getting that secondhand experience, and you might teach the information and know what it says on paper and how you might potentially apply that. But then you see something, or you run into it, or you see how they run into the situation. Now you're doing this. You're like, oh fuck, why'd you do that? And now you explain it, and you have that understanding and see how that's actually applied in real world application. Like somebody asked me the other day, show me the study that shows that throwing up during a leg workout is beneficial for hypertrophy. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's not what we're even saying. What?
Nobody says beneficial for hypertrophy.
Yeah, nobody. It's about learning a threshold to make you a better athlete.
It's about the mental lesson.
Yeah. That's the thing though. A lot of coaching is also mental too. I think a lot of people don't look at coaching as that too. They think it's just program.
There's a lot of nuances that we talk about in the industry as far as being good coaches and things that matter. Like I know where my shortcomings are. My problem is, like, for example, when I peak people in person, I love what I do, and when somebody starts looking good, I get excited. But you've got to be calm, because you don't want to get your competitors all riled up and get their, you have to stay calm. So I'm literally sitting there leaning against the wall going, be quiet, don't say anything, keep quiet, don't smile, don't, like, I'm assessing it and I'm seeing new lines, I'm seeing things come in, and I want to be like, oh, but I'm like, oh, that's good. You have I'm forcing myself to stay calm, whereas like Honey Rambod actually said fairly recently, he said he's like, yes, I know my science, I know my methods and this and that. He said, but where I shine is working with athletes mentally, getting them to do the right things, getting them on point, getting them to execute, because if they don't execute, they don't do it. And a lot of times you'll see somebody switch from a no-name coach to a big name coach, and all of a sudden there's a big difference. The difference might not be what the coach is doing. It might be because the competitor believes in the program more. When somebody has like a Chris Aceto peaking them, they're not panicking because they have very good confidence in the fact that he's going to get it right. So they're calm, they're not worried. And aspects like that are very important. I was talking to, again, my buddy Nick Walker, like last week, and we were talking about his coach, Matt Jansen. And he is very good at just keeping you calm, keeping you focused on what you got to do. Like, that's where I fail. That's one of his strengths, where he's calm, soft spoken, talks slowly, makes it he doesn't confuse you. So when it comes time to peaking and he's there in person, he's very good at keeping the environment the way that it needs to be, so that the athlete is calm and in the right mindset, and they know that he's there to help them and things like that. And that's where I need to be better. So there's numerous aspects where coaches can always improve. Some people have bad communication. Some people get too tied up emotionally. Some people have bad structures. They don't figure this out. They don't figure that out. Like, there's a lot of different things that go into coaching, and people can improve.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, like I said, they just see it as write a program, write a meal plan, know that. And I was saying that a lot of it is you also have to coach athletes mentally, which I know, you've done with me. You'll try to like psychologically get me to train harder. And I've done this with my clients. If I see somebody's, having issues and they tell me something, I'll hop on the phone call with them and like, well, this is what we're going to do. You need to get your shit straight. Like, if you want to start this business and you want to focus on this, this is the plan we're going to come up with. And it's just working with somebody psychologically to get them to be more productive, actually on a schedule, working towards their goals. It's not just as simple as here's the plan and fuck off. It's like, sometimes you have to deal with people psychologically.
Absolutely. And it's different with each of them. Even in my contest prep course, if you notice, there's certain tricks that I like to play on people to make them think that they're in one place or another. And I made it very clear. I said, do this to men, but you cannot do this to women, because women respond differently to stress. And if you stress a woman out, everything stops. So I was like, I will play this trick on my men to get better results. I will not do this to my women, because you're going to screw the whole process up. So you've got to take those things into consideration. I tell people, if Trenbolone or Halo is affecting the mental state of somebody and making them angry and making them fight with their partner at home and causing trouble at their job, bad idea. You know, it's causing more harm than it would good. Just take it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I guess the second part of that question was, for somebody who wants to learn more, get into obviously this podcast. Phil has tons of other podcasts, but what are some sources? I know you mentioned Aceto has a book, some sources people could go and actually, pick up and read, and that has a lot of value. I know Scott Stevenson's book.
Aceto's book was written like 20 something years ago. So I'm not sure I know I read it, but I'm not sure exactly what's in it. I don't know what's in his other books. I never got that one. I tell everybody, if you really want to learn this stuff, the first thing you need to do is you need to read Be Your Own Bodybuilding Coach by Scott Stevenson 10 times. Like if you memorize that book, and you're going to be miles ahead of where you started. But make sure you understand. Don't just read the words. You need to understand it. The book it's a very well put together and an intricate book by one of my mentors and one of the smartest people that's ever been in this industry, who understands it very, very well and understands how to teach. So Be Your Own Bodybuilding Coach by Scott Stevenson. You can get that on Amazon. If every single person who aspires to do this needs to read that 10 times cover to cover and basically memorize that book before they think of doing anything else. Because one thing that book will do for you is it's hard to pick out who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't. Like I've given this analogy 1,000 times. If I lined up 10 physicists in front of you and you're not a physicist, can you tell me who the good ones and bad ones are? Hell no, you can't. You don't know the difference. There's no way you'll figure it out. If you wanted to figure it out, you'd have to ask other physicists who know better, right? So it's very hard to know who's online giving the right information and the wrong information. And I'm telling you right now, more than half the information on the internet is wrong. Some of even your biggest, most famous, your favorite people that you follow that teach a lot of bad stuff too. They're not wrong they're right about a lot, but they teach some stuff that's incorrect. And I think that you need to be able to identify that. And the only way you can identify that is with a base of knowledge. So if you take Scott's book, which I know cover to cover is correct, then you memorize that, it'll give you a very good base to identify the BS. And the funny part is, and I tell this to my apprentices in my apprenticeship program, said, as you become more educated, as you scroll through social media, you're going to get angrier and angrier and angrier, because you're going to start going like, okay, this guy's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. What the hell? Where's something that's right? You're going to be picking out things. You did it yourself. I know you did, because you text me.
Yeah.
That like as soon as we started pushing your education, you're like, oh crap, now I see everything that's wrong. You're like, Jesus Christ. So the more educated you become, you're going to notice more. And listen, don't bang yourself over the head. The past is the past. You can't change the past. A lot of people like say, oh, I listened to this person for so long, or I did this wrong for so long. Who cares? It's in the past. Focus on what you can do right now. Because I promise you read that book cover to cover, you're going to realize at least somebody you're following that you were taking their word as gold. You're going to be like, wait a minute, this person was wrong this whole time.
Yeah.
And I've even posted things in my story recently. Lane Norton tears into a lot of people that have millions of followers, people that speak at seminars and have respect in certain fields. And then he's picking out a lot of the things they're saying. He's like, all right. And he's giving you definitive proof. It's not his opinion. He's proving to you that they're full of shit. So I'm talking about people with millions of followers. So those are just a few that he picked out. So imagine how many people that you guys are following right now that you think what they're saying is right and it's not.
Well, I can honestly say with 100% confidence that the people with millions of followers, the people with the biggest followings, are never the smartest people. The smartest guys do not have huge followings. Like there's some people with millions of followers that put up good information, but they are not the smartest people.
Because you can only put your energy into so many things. So if you look at all of the smartest people credited through history, our best inventors, they were all considered socially awkward and like because they didn't develop that skill, because they had so much, you only have so many resources. They put all of it into something else. So a lot of times smart people are like, I'm a terrible marketer, horrible. Look at the size of my Instagram. I mean, granted, I lost my Instagram twice at 36K, so it'd probably be up near 100 by now, but it is what it is. I'm a terrible marketer. I don't really care to. I don't put any effort into it. And look at the size of my page. You see, I have 10,000 followers. You think I wouldn't know anything, So just look right there. And there's a lot of those, look at Chris Tuttle, AJ Sims. Up until they started building their pages recently, they had 20,000 followers, 30,000. You would think they didn't know anything. Chris Tuttle's one of the smartest people in the entire industry. AJ Sims, look at his track record. So like the people that are the best usually aren't the most well-known. The most well-known people are the people that are the best at marketing. And a lot of times the people that are best at marketing are marketing, they're playing the line. They might not be lying to you or saying something wrong, but they're playing that line.
Yeah,
You
they
know?
might not
It's
be.
like,
They
oh,
might
I
have.
didn't.
Oh, I what?
They're lying or scamming by omission. You know,
I know where you're gonna go with this, but just because
I'm
somebody
not
has a
going to
lot
go
of
that far
followers,
with it.
just because somebody has followers doesn't mean that they're necessarily, uneducated or have bad information. But there's just so much. There's so many more smart people out there that are significantly smarter that just don't have those followings. And it's like all those guys you named: AJ, Chris Tuttle, Aceto. I guarantee you, 99% of kids on TikTok that are in the follow the fitness industry have never heard those names because they're not big names unless you are around that
Has
type
a
of stuff.
decent sized following, but that's only because of his success. He
Yeah.
doesn't market anything. He's never marketed anything ever. He'll go months without posting. He's only popular on social media because he's been doing this so long. He was Jay Cutler's coach in 2001. Everybody knows it, and he's done it. He's done it so many times. He's popular as a result of what he has done, but he's not a good marketer whatsoever. And the other two used to have small pages until they actually like hired people and they started really working at it to build it up. Even AJ is only big because as a result of success too. He doesn't post any content. He doesn't have any flashy things on his page. There's no style. There's no marketing.
No, but
So
what
a
I'm
lot of those
saying,
guys don't do it.
what I'm saying is the reason like those guys are big, but they're only big if you know about bodybuilding. Like the kids getting into this and they see TikTok, they don't know any of that shit. They just see who's got the most trending videos, and
look at Hollywood. How many movie stars have a bodybuilding geared coach getting them ready for the stick, getting ready for their movies? They all have generic, regular personal trainers. Those people aren't transformation specialists. They're fitness people. They get you healthy. They can get you to lose body fat. They're not going to sculpt a physique. They're not going to build, like, if I had The Rock, I would sculpt him into something you would never believe. Like, and this goes for any. The only one who was smart enough to do it was Michael B. Jordan. His coach won junior nationals, and we see what he looks like on film.
Batista too.
Batista, look at what he looked like. So
Yeah.
when they get actual bodybuilding coaches, we see the massive transformations. But Hollywood just has no idea that the difference in the contrast versus a bodybuilding coach versus somebody who's just really popular with the celebrities.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of that's just who
a
you know.
A lot of the time I see those celebrity trainers and they don't even know average amount of shit. They're just really good at convincing you.
No. Well, then if you go, because what we're talking about right now is like the fitness industry on the lower end where kids like know who, big TikTokers are and stuff. And like there's a lot of information to learn there still, but it's not like the highest level. But then if you look at like the general population that's not even the industry, those people don't know shit.
But you know what? All the biggest TikTokers right now, all the biggest educational pages on TikTok right now, they're playing the game because they know people want the details. They know they want the nuances. They're talking about upper chest and targeting your lower, all this stuff that doesn't matter until you're advanced. And it's the stuff that people want. They want to hear about drugs. They want to hear about tips and tricks. They don't want to hear the boring stuff of just build your base, get strong, learn form, learn tempo, learn execution, and be consistent. Because that's the truth for most of them. But that's not entertaining. And you know what? All of those popular TikTokers, you won't find that information on their page. You're gonna find all the stuff that's useless to everybody that's beginning.
Everybody tries to major in the minors when they, haven't even really gone anywhere yet.
Well, a lot of them haven't even done. A lot of the most popular TikTokers haven't really done anything, and yet everybody's listening to them. Why? Because they speak confidently, they're entertaining, they talk on popular topics, and they talk on these little tiny nuances and details that everybody feels like they're getting some secret that nobody else has. When the information really is useless to them. So these people are building their following off of, I wouldn't say deception, but the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's not a big name TikToker right now that I would follow for information. Not that I know of anyway.
No, because there's at a point where you're at, or like where I'm at, there's nothing that you could possibly learn from that. There's nothing to be learned.
You can use some of this stuff and learn from it, but it doesn't matter until you get to the important part.
No, I'm talking about like me or you. I'm talking about like me or you, like watching that shit.
There's nobody on it.
I just tear it apart. I just like, what the fuck is this?
There's nobody on TikTok I can learn from right now. I can say that with certainty. Well, actually, no. Joe Bennett is on there. I do think that he's very good with training. Joe Bennett is a good resource. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is some, because I know Joe Bennett's on there, and I definitely think that you can learn from him.
I love Joe. I was gonna say Joe is very smart, and he understands like the complexities and stuff. And you see, he doesn't get
it. What? But Joe also talks about intensity and pushing hard. He talks, like I said, the things that they don't talk about, he does talk about that. He will never tell you that squeezing is going to be more important than intensity. You won't hear that out of him.
Exactly. But
You
this
know,
is
he's not going to tell you that a sideways angle leg press is going to build your quads more than a major basic quad movement. He won't say that.
no.
You know, he teaches you mechanics, he teaches you things like that. But you're never going to hear Joe say something stupid like the other kids are saying.
No, I would love to get Joe on because again, Joe is very smart. He understands the nuance of things, and that's also like
he specializes in training, and he's probably one of the most specialized in training that there is. Because
Yeah.
he not only does he understand it, he understands how it ties into bodybuilding, he understands how it ties into the real world. He's not doing it just for show. He can back up everything he teaches, whereas 99% of the other TikTokers cannot.
No, but you look at that Joe's a good example because if you look at Joe's TikTok, it's not big. He doesn't get a ton of views, and people try to argue with him all the time. And it's funny because you'll see this shit. It's like, do you even know who you're talking to? But then they'll tag somebody else that has a big TikTok following just because that's who they're familiar with and try to use them to argue against him. And it's like these people just don't know the actual educators in the industry, and they just want simple answers. And when somebody like Joe comes on and explains things more thoroughly, doesn't get a lot of views, and people see and they're like, who the fuck is this guy?
I can't believe people argue with him because you know what? I mean, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. If me and him disagreed on a training topic, my first thought was, let me make sure I'm not wrong first.
Yeah, 100%.
It would make me if we were arguing about training, specifically training, I would have doubts. I would go back and study. I wouldn't argue with him right away. I'd say, wait a minute, am I missing something? And I'd go fucking dig.
Yeah.
Before even engaging, because
It's kids arguing with him.
It's just ego and ignorance, because there's nobody on TikTok that can argue with Joe. Not one person.
No.
So if anybody on there is arguing with him, they're an idiot.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just a societal thing at this point. Everybody's so different now from how they were 10 years ago.
You know what it is? Nobody's held accountable for their opinions.
Yeah.
You know, they figure, oh, if I say something stupid on this page, nobody will see it. If there was like a billboard that posted all your stupid things you said, nobody replied anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's because there's no accountability and they can get away with it. So everybody has an opinion now. Everybody feels like they're allowed an opinion. See, when I was younger, you didn't have that. But on the forums, if you said something stupid, I read on the forums for 5 years before I even posted something. And then when I posted something, I was asking questions and I was still hesitant. I didn't give advice probably till 8-10 years into my education, because I wanted to make sure I was right. And two, if I said something wrong, they'd rip me to pieces. Sometimes even if you said something right, but you were a nobody, they'd say, shut up. Like, who are you? Don't even have the credibility to be saying this. Like you didn't speak out of turn. Now now you're mean and you're not PC if you tell somebody they can't have an opinion. Listen, like I said, when I was growing up, you didn't wear a string tank to the gym unless you were jacked.
And you get bullied.
A string tank, and they would kick me out of the gym.
Yeah, look at this pussy.
But you know what? I wouldn't even need that, because I understood that I would be embarrassed to try to do that.
You understand? You know your place. Nobody knows their place now.
These tripods kids are bringing into the gym, they just smash their tripods.
Yeah, there should be a rule against. I don't know how you enforce that, because it's kind of like, I feel like it's like unconstitutional or something.
It would kill your business.
Yeah.
In today's time, it'll kill your business to do that. You can't.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it would have been handled much, much differently. You wouldn't have filmed your set. Somebody would have smashed your tripod and told you to get out. You know, especially if you're like in the way or
literally,
annoying.
Literally would happen. They would kick over your fucking camera. That would have happened. It's crazy.
The culture is so different today because everybody's got to be nice to each other, and like I said, good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times, and then hard times create strong men. But right now it's all weak. There's nothing strong. So everybody's
strong men create good times. Good times create the weak men. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So everybody right now is becoming weak because everything is so PC and nobody can say the truth. Everybody's got to be nice to each other. Don't say something unless you have something nice to say. You know what? A lot of the worst things that were said to me in my life were some of the best things that ever happened to me. Phil Herndon, who's passed away now, RIP, was a big name pro on Professional Muscle. He told me I'd never be top 10 at a national show and I should quit. Well, I was top 10, I think 8 or 9 times now, but he told me not to, and it pissed me off and it drove me. When I was young, I was broke, and a girl texted me by accident. She meant to text her friend. She said, I need to date somebody who actually is going somewhere with his life and has goals. And I still have that text in my phone. I still remember it. And that's what drove me. Without that text, it wouldn't have kicked me in the ass to do something.
Yeah.
So these kids are soft because they don't have that. But not only that, they don't have the shell and the resilience to deal with any type of criticism. So then when they finally get it, it hurts. They have no protection. They have no
freak
way to
out.
handle it.
They freak out. They
Yeah,
start,
do you know how many times I've been called short and small? Like, dude, I've been called things countless times, but I can handle it because of the way I grew up. You say that to a kid now, they're gonna break down and cry in the corner and go get therapy. It doesn't make you stronger. I even said, like, if I ever had kids and I had a son, I can't believe there's kids in this world that've never been punched in the face. I'd make my kid leave the house and say, don't come back without a black eye.
No, I said this the other day. I just give an example, bringing back bullying. Some guy lost his mind. He was like, why would you ever say that? I did a whole podcast with Mahali the other day too, talking all about this emotional intelligence, adversity, how it builds resilience. And they don't have that now.
There's a difference between mass bullying and then bullying situations. I don't believe in, say, somebody making a video online where like millions of people go attack this person and rip them apart. And like, it's even affecting celebrities now, right? That girl, I forget her name, just did Rebel Moon. She's like, I thought I was prepared for it, and I'm not, because the movie got terrible reviews and she's getting hammered and it's messing up her head. So like, it's very hard to deal with mass amounts of people. I'm talking about one-on-one. Just because somebody said something bad to you, deal with it. Your life is not over. Words only hurt if you allow them to hurt, and it only hurts if you believe it's true, right? Like, if I told you were a shitty bodybuilder right now, probably just laugh, because that shit ain't true. Now, if somebody said something that was somewhat true, yeah, that might bother you. So guess what? Do something about it or learn to deal with it.
Yeah. So people, there's no consequences to their actions now. They all talk as if nothing's bad going to happen. And then if you do say something, they, now you have anger issues, you're an egomaniac, and they just can't deal with the fact that they might be saying something that's actually fucking stupid because they don't have the self-awareness to even conceive that.
This famous Tyson quote, people got too comfortable with being disrespectful and not getting punched in the face.
Yeah. It's
so there's no consequences. When there's consequences, it's a different story.
Am I like lagging out? Do you see me lagging out?
A little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but all right. I think we'll wrap it up here because it's been over 2 hours. I think we had enough.
We could do this again. We could do this again. You're gonna have to timestamp this. I don't think people are gonna watch the whole thing.
They watched the other one, so hopefully they'll watch this one. Anything you want to plug or talk about real quick? Are you doing another class or anything?
No, not me. I'm just, I might drop into the class soon, but I'm not doing anything in particular right now. I'm just coaching, living, normal stuff for me.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and
thank you for having me.
We'll see you guys next time on the next episode of
Brass
Tack Bodybuilding. For sure. Peace out.